Hey, how you doing, guys? This is Kevin from Hack Minds, and I'm gonna be here today showing you guys how to Python program. All right, so for starters, we're going to talk about what you need first as far as text editors and certain things like that. Now, first, we're going to start at the actual Python website, and let me start back at the beginning so you can see how this works. All right, so when you get here, it's going to come up to this portion of the website, and we simply just going to go right here at downloads, and then you click on which operating system, and if you have other operating systems right here. But seeing as how I got Windows, I'm going to go here. Now what you do then is you will scroll all the way down or to the current version, and also keep in mind of what it's saying that it cannot be used on. So 3.8.2 is the new current version. Now, when you're downloading Python, there's a couple things. There's two installers you can do, and this will be the 32-bit, but you're always going to get the executable installer. So this is 32-bit and 64-bit, and you'll have to look into your system info in order to know which one to download and which would be better ran on your computer. Now, once you start this process, you would then want to download Genie. Now, one reason that I recommend this is because the book that started me on programming originally started out with this text editor. So I recommend that to people because it's a good way to also test your code, and that's what I usually use it for. Is testing my code. But yeah, just download the latest version, which is simple. Once you search it on Google, you'll come up to the genie.org website, and then you'll just download it right there, and it'll do everything automatically. Um, this right here is my Visual Studios. Well, not my Visual Studios, but this is a text editor also. And what's cool about this is it's you got a lot more features and stuff like that. You can do add-ons which can help you during programming, but this is where I do most of my coding right here, and this is how I started out. Now, like I said, I go back and I take snippets of code, and then I would just test it right here, and especially if I'm writing like a long code. All right, guys, this is my YouTube channel, Hackmine. As you can see, I just created this thing not too long ago. I haven't uploaded a video yet currently because I'm making it. But yeah, and on my YouTube channel, I have my Instagram, I have my Twitter, and then I have the most valuable piece of information, which is my GitHub. So whenever you come to my channel, go to my GitHub account, which it would also be a link in the description of the video. But if you ever just want to do it that way, and then we'll look and see that I don't have anything on here but one repository. And then we click on this, and this will be all the content that you need to go along with this video. So I created you a whole thing you can read, and I'm also explaining everything within that, which is already pretty much self-explanatory once you see it. All right, so here once we get inside my repositories, we see that I have really three files. This README is just telling you this stuff right here. So we're going to click on the first one. Thing loads up. All right. So this is the guy right here, as you can tell, and this is just how it's storing on GitHub. So what we're gonna do to be able to access this into our code editor is we're gonna start by converting it into a raw file. And with it like this, we're gonna then right click on this screen, and we're gonna go to Save Page As. So once we get here, we're just gonna simply call it, which I would, if I was y'all, I would call it review or whatever y'all want to name it, but make sure it's something y'all can find later. And then with me, I'm just going to create it like this. And whenever you're saving this file, make sure you put .py, which signifies for your computer that this is Python programming code within this file. So do .py, and seeing how it already exists, I'll just replace it. Now, once it downloads, you're going to open up the file, but you're gonna open up the containing folder, because if you open it up like this, let me show you, it's just gonna send it through your CMD terminal instead of opening it up in your text editor. So here we see that the file is contained in my documents, and then we'll then open it with Visual Studios. So this is where I would like y'all to do most of y'all like I said, coding and stuff. Okay, so I already had it pulled up because I was explaining it. This is like my 5th time doing this video, so I hope this is the one. But yeah, I already had it right here. All right, so let me scroll it back up. So this is the guide right here. Now since we're here, I just want to explain a few things about this guide. Now, everything I have it kind of like organized, and let me run this. Let me run this right quick to show you guys. All right. Now you see how, well, let's not the beginning. Okay, so you see how it starts out. This is like, all right, so as I'm explaining this video, I'm gonna show you an add-on which will help you see it like side by side over here. So what I'm basically trying to explain here is how organized this is. So for 1A, obviously this is the title, and then for 1A, this is what I'm trying to explain here. So anything dealing with like an A or a letter after the number is going along with whatever the main number is. So 2 is going to go along with 2A, 3, etc. You know. So I felt that I explained that. That way you can kind of understand why I got everything labeled the way I do. Now I have a couple keys here, and the EX, whenever you see that, is going to stand for example, and then OP, whenever you see that, is going to stand for output. So that will better help you navigate through that. And then also within this VS Code, I got a couple things, and you know, I'm gonna turn you on to somebody that actually like fully breaks down this whole thing. I'm not gonna do it because for the sake of the video, but I feel like there's a couple things that y'all should like have for real. So one thing that I think y'all should have is editor.format on save true. So whenever y'all about to save your profile, it'll automatically edit it whichever editor you have. So right now I have it editing in black formatting, and like I said, I'll keep a link in the video to explain each one so you can understand it a whole lot better. Now also, I feel like it's a necessity to have workbench.settings.open default settings, which would be true. And this simply does it. This is your workbench, and just open up the settings. Now over here in the settings, this is the default way this VS Code is set up. So if you wanted to, let's say, change something on here, let's say we wanted to change the editor accessibility page size, well then copy and then paste it over here, and then it'll be part of the then you save it, and then it'll be part of your workbench. So whatever you do in here and change in here, it'll be applied to how the VS Code works for you. So it's a good way of personalizing it. All right, let me exit out of this. No, don't save it. All right, but yeah, like I said, I have a video for that for you guys in the link below. Now, first things first, when learning Python, we're going to want to talk about a few things. And for starters, we want to introduce you to strings, variables, and methods. So first, we're going to talk about the most common one, the most common way that everybody prints stuff on to their terminal. Oh yeah, before we start that, I want to show you guys one thing that I feel like y'all shouldn't have. All right, now this is an add-on that goes with VS Code, and I feel like it's essential for like in the future when y'all are coding. But like I said in the video, in the link below, I'll send you the video where I learned all this stuff. But basically, all this does is it executes your code as you're writing the code. So you see how he's writing print right now, and everything he's typing is being processed. So whenever I open this up, hold on, guys. All right, so whenever I open this up, as you can see, as I was stating earlier, start typing or make a change to your code would be evaluated. So basically what this is saying is, like, in order for this to work, I got to start typing. And you see how everything's printed out. But this is cool because now we can work side by side with each other and do it better like this. Okay. All right, I messed up. There you go. All right, sorry, guys. All right, so here, like I said, we have everything labeled, and you're able to read it side by side instead of having to, like, try to figure it out from scrolling up and down like that. But whatever works for you, I say do it. Now, first thing we're going to talk about is a simple print statement, which the print statement basically tells Python to produce the output into your terminal window like it's doing right here. So you see how I have the title, and then I have hello everyone right here. That's all the print statement does. Anything in between these parentheses is going to be shown out to your terminal. So, and now we're going to talk about a simple value, a variable in value. So we're talking about this. This is just simple mathematics. So, for instance, in math, you have a variable, and then that variable would equal the value that's stored in here. So basically what it is saying right here is that this string is going to be stored here, and then we're going to be able to print this variable, and it's going to show you the value of it right here. So hello world, I'm Kevin. Now, what's not allowed in the variable name? Spaces instead of underscores, simply because it just confuses Python. And numbers can't come first when naming a variable, and that's just how Python handles white spaces and stuff like that. And we'll get into white spaces later on down. But avoid using keyword in Python as variable names, just for the simple fact you don't want to confuse them with, like, say if you have a variable named print and then you use print, it's kind of confusing. And then variable names should not be just one letter. So whenever you're explaining something, because the idea in programming is to share, and because having another mind on a project is always better than having just one. So this is just stating, like, if you want to make a variable called name, then don't put in, just tell names, because it's, like I said, it's short and descriptive, and it better helps you remember what everything was there for and everything. So it helps you keep track and flow of your program. Now, a couple variable rules is be careful using lowercase l and uppercase O. Could be confused for 1 and 0. That's just how Python handles certain things. I haven't had that experience yet, but it was known, so I feel like I should let y'all know too. Now, avoiding name errors when using variables. Now, this is just simply stating that when we get errors, they're produced into, they're stored into traceback. So as you can see, the definition for traceback is a record of where the interpreter ran into trouble when trying to execute your code. And I have an example here. Now, these hashtags right here, these are all called comments. So whenever you're actually making a program, the comment will be a summary of what, or be a way to tell you, like, what the program is doing, or certain things like that, or what people need to know about the program that's going on. Excuse me. So I'm gonna backspace this out, and you see how we get name error, name message with an extra S is not defined. So basically what this is explaining is that on line 55 in the module that we're in right now, there's a name error with the word message. So, okay, we look at this and then we assess it. And then we go back to where we have created the previous variable message. And we realize, oh, wow, we accidentally typed in an extra S. So it's in order to fix this, you'll just have to take the S off and boom, you got it. But I thought that was a good way to explain that error. Now this is just basically saying the same thing I already said, but if you're reading along and and you hear me talking to, you can still follow this because the way I'm explaining, the way I designed this is how I want to explain it. So now we're going to understand what actual strings are, and strings is basically anything inside quotation marks or an apostrophe. So anything inside of double quotes or single quotes, which are apostrophes. Now you can also use quotes and apostrophes together, but whatever one that you use on the outside is also got to be used on the whatever you use on the outside cannot be used on the inside. So you see how I got apostrophe right here, apostrophe on the end, but then I also have Python is my favorite language, and I have double actual quotation marks in the inside. Now now if I would have had single apostrophes all through here, Python wouldn't know where the string would end, so it would create an error saying that we have invalid syntax. Now I'll explain this a little deeper, a little bit further on. But understanding methods, a method is simply an action that Python can perform on a piece of data. So this method is dot title. So what the dot is explaining in this is telling Python with the variable name we would like to apply, which will be that dot, the title method, which is basically just takes the first letter of Otta and the first letter of Lovelace, and then we simply just capitalize it. As we can see here in 3A, we have Otta with a capital A and Lovelace with a capital L. So that's simply all that title method does. Now in the future, we're gonna have information which goes with the method that we're using, and but for right now, since we don't need no additional information, we just keep this empty. And now we're going to talk about the upper and lower methods, which is very simple concepts. Simply all they do is just upper is just all capitalized, lower is all lowercase letters. And as you can see right here in 4A and 4B, that Otta Lovelace is in all capitals and Otta Lovelace is all lowercase. Now, I have it also organized to let you know which one is which. So 4A is upper and then 4B is lower. Sorry for the confusion. It's just the way that is squinched over to the corner. But now we're going to talk about connotating strings. Now, connotation is the method of combining strings. Python uses the plus symbol to combine strings. So that's all we're doing is just combining strings here. And and the word for it is just connotation. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to connotate the first name, Otta, and the last name, Lovelace, into one variable by having two plus signs. So let me break this down for you. So obviously this is the first one, and then we're going to add it, and then we're going to create double quotes right here. Now all this is signifying is creating space between Otta and Lovelace. So if I do this and connotate it like that, as you can see in 5A that it has no space here anymore. So that's why we would create a quote and then we'll hit spacebar one time. And then when you see how it's more organized and more understandable. Now Sorry, guys. Now we print. Now we can print the full name, and we simply just put it into the print statement, and then we take the variable that has the connotation in the inside, and then we apply the title method to it. So as you can see, we can we got uppercase A and and uppercase L to let you know that the dot title method did apply itself. Now we can also use that connotation into a sentence, which is basically just put it in the print statement, add a string, and then we will add that string with the variable full name applied with the dot title method applied, and then we'll put a period at the end. So what we see here is going to be presented in the terminal as this: hello people, my name is Ada Lovelace. So that's a good way of combining strings and then using the variable in a sentence of the connotation. Now, we can also store the message inside of the variable using the connotation. So we created a variable called intro, and then we simply just say, hello people, my name is, and then the full name, which was Ada Lovelace. And as you can see here, created a full sentence with the variable. And then right here, it's the same thing. It's just the way that it's stored. Instead of it being inside of a print statement, we store the message inside of a variable. Now here we're going to explain white spaces, tabs, and new lines. And white spaces are simply any non-printing character, which are spaces, tabs, new lines, stuff like that. Now, to explain how to create a tab within Python is simple. At 6A, if we scroll down here. Oh yeah, and another pointer on this is, where the heck is my freaking scroll down? Oh, there it is. All right, so another pointer on this is whenever you start typing, it resets this. So see how it's constantly changing. It will send you all the way back to the beginning. Like for instance, if I saw a mistake here and I was like, oh man, let me fix that, right? See, it sends me all the way back to the beginning of the list, just because it's constantly changing live. So this is simply explaining what a tab does. So 6A is without the tab, without dash T applied. And then we see with the tab how much space it creates and how it pushes it out. So tabs are useful whenever you find use for it. Whenever you need, like, I don't know, a space between something or something like that. Now here we're gonna create new lines. And as you can see here, as favorite cars doesn't have the dash in part. So this is how you tell a new line. It'd be dash in, and this is how you do a tab, dash T. So dash in, we can see is applied to Lambo, Kia, and Tesla. So whenever it prints out, it will print it out like this: favorite cars / new line Lambo / new line Kia / new line Tesla. It puts everything on a new line for you. And then now we're going to explain stripping white spaces, and that simply just takes anything. Like with this tab, if we put an L strip on it, then it would take away that the white space on the left side. So basically, extra white spaces are detected by Python and makes the two words in the string two different things. So Python versus Python, these are two different things. It's another way of manipulating strings whenever programming. For our strip method, it gets rid of the white spaces on the right side. L strip gets rid of the white spaces on the left side. And then the strip method, it removes white spaces on both sides. Now, the strip method is temporary, which means once you apply it once, it won't be constant throughout the whole program if you're reusing that same variable. So what we got to do is we got to re-establish it establish it into the variable. So how we do that is first we create the variable with the value that we want. And then as you can see, we have white spaces on the right side of this. So then we bring the variable back, and then we create a new value for it. So the original value is Python, and then we take this value, and then we apply the strip method to it, which I forgot. Whoops, got the quotation marks in that. I mean the parentheses. So then we apply the strip method to it. Now, whenever we apply the strip method, we would then just have to reprint it. So that way you can see the difference in it in the white spaces. Now, understanding some errors involving strings. Now, syntax errors occurs when Python doesn't recognize a section of your program as valid code. So like I was saying earlier, when you're using apostrophe within single quotes, which also are apostrophes, I will show you this right here. I can back this out. All right. So here, as you can see, we have a invalid syntax error. So you see how one of my favorite books, and then it stops at the apostrophe S. This is the confusion that Python has when using apostrophes throughout the whole one type of quotation throughout the whole thing. So in order to change this, you'll just have to put double quotes right here if you want to use books like this. And the only thing is that Python doesn't know where the string ends. So this is just out there on the terminal, and this is inside of the string kind of thing. And a cool thing about this right here, say if we had this invalid syntax error, right? We click on it, click on the blue marker, and then we would then click open, and then it would take us, it would automatically search this for us, Python syntax error. So let's say, for instance, we want to find, I kind of want to show you guys Stack Overflow. Now, okay, so here's Stack Overflow. Now, this is where I usually find all my answers. You can post questions and stuff like that. So if you ever have any questions as far as like when you're coding, you just ask a question, and then it would then let you produce your code and stuff like that. See how it automatically induce my code. So wondering why I got a syntax error there. Now that's a good way of that's why I also use this. It doesn't not only live change it, but it also helps you find the error online instead of you having to physically type it in. All right. And this is just restating what I was saying. Make sure you use double quotes if you want to use a single quotes within the statement. Now, using numbers with Python, the common signs in math is the same as in numbers. So addition, obviously the plus sign, subtraction, the minus sign. Multiplying is just an asterisk, one asterisk, and division is a slash, and then exponents in Python is a double asterisk. So floats are considered in Python as just decimal points. So where are we at? 7. So this would be the print output of 0.2 plus 0.1. This is what a float looks like. And sometimes you'll get an arbitrary number because Python tries its hardest to pinpoint the decimal as well as we can. Kind of like with the concept of pi is 3.14, and this is basically the concept of that. Because we know pi is like a lot more than just 3.14. But all right, now we're going to use the string function, and the string function basically just converts non-string values into strings. And this will be an example of why we would need the string function, simply because here we defined a variable by having a value of 23. So within here, we create a message just stating happy birthday and using a value that's stored in age. So here you can see type error can only connotate strings, not integers, to strings. So basically what that is saying is that we cannot combine numerical representations of a number with a string within a string. So you can't add strings and numbers together. So that's why you have to use the string function. Now with the string function, this simply just converts the numerical value into a string representation of that number. So basically all that is saying is we're able to combine it with other strings. Now if I wanted to compare numbers, I wouldn't necessarily have to convert it into a string, but only when I'm using the value within the print statement. That's the only way you have to convert it into the string. Now here we're going to talk about the intro to the list. Lists are a collection of items in a particular order. And the way a list is set up is that you'll have the variable, and then that variable would equal the list, which is in square brackets. And then within the list is individual elements inside quotes, and then we separate those elements with a comma. And then always remember that Python considers the first item in the list as 0 instead of 1. And if you're getting unexpected results, the off by 1, it's an off by 1 error. So basically stating, let me put this back in quotation. All right, so basically what that is stating is that whenever, like when we got here, 0, 1, 2, 3, the off by 1 error is if you was like 1, if you started counting this by 1, basically. So whenever we first create a variable car to store the elements for it, as I just gave you an example of one of the elements, and then in the list of cars. And then the square brackets tells Python that you're storing elements into a list. The elements are pieces of information stored in the list, and then we're going to print cars, and then it will come out like this in this format. A simple list. Now, this is, I'm going to show you how to access the elements in the list, so that way we can create print statements using individual elements like Lambo or Ford or something like that. So this is accessing the third element, which we will call for the second one. So 0, 1, 2, and if you look at it the other way, is 1, 2, 3. So that's the third element, and that's the off by 1. So whenever you're looking for a number, just subtract 1 from it, and you'll be able to get that element out of that list. So now we're going to access the last element. And when we're accessing elements, all we simply need is a variable, the variable where the list is contained, and then square brackets, and then the number of the element that we want. And then for accessing the last element, like say if we didn't know how many items was in the list, we just remember what the last one that we put in there, we can just simply do the cars, the name of the list, and then we can just simply pull the last element by putting -1 into the square brackets. Now, this same concept works for -2, which would be second from last, and then so on for -3 and stuff like that. So that's a simple way of getting the things at the end of the list if you had like a super long list. So now we can connotate the element that we're pulling from that list, and we can use it inside of a statement. Now here we just simply, instead of just simply putting print, we store it into a variable. That way we can reuse it here a lot easier. Like this is, I want you to get used to this idea for the simple fact of storing stuff in a variable and then reusing it is the most simplest way to keep Python from having like a whole bunch of print statements and stuff like that. So this is just basically explaining what I just said. And then we're going to modify elements. Now I understand within this list right here, certain things that parents might not want to see for kids. So if you're a parent watching this first, then you can simply just change it once you download the files and stuff like that. I guess it wouldn't matter for the video, but I guess if you didn't want to watch the video but still learn Python, you can still literally just read this and it'll still give you the same value. But anyways, so a way to modify the list is this right here. This is how we modify a list. This piece of code right here. So simply what we do is we give it to the list that we want to modify, and then inside the square brackets we get what value we want to change. So we're going to change the first one from money to cash, and as you can see in 2B, let me scroll down a little bit. In 2B and 2A, before modifying, it was money, weed, sex, cars. After modifying, we changed the word money to cash, and then we put weed, sex, cars. Now, once you modify an element, it's no longer used. The previous example, like money, is no longer available in this list after you modify. Now, one thing is obviously like, okay, you can still change it, but you have to change this. You have to get rid of this piece of code, or as you keep on programming, it's just gonna keep using whatever value is in there. So then again, that's just explaining everything I just said. Now, adding an item to a list, the append method adds a new element to the end of the list, and simple way, this is how you add it right here. So this is basically just stating, here's the list that we're adding the new element to. Remember, the dot tells Python to apply the method onto the list. So we're applying the append method, and we're going to add love to the end of the list. Now in 5, we can see. Okay, let's reference back to 2B. You see how it's just cash, weed, sex, cars? Now when we come to 5, we can see cash, weed, sex, cars, and then we got love at the end. You see how I added that at the end? So whenever you want to add items to the end of a list, you just simply use the append. Now you can also use the append to add items to an empty list. Here we created an empty list, and just basically when you create a variable, give it a value of just 2 square brackets, and then you'll be able to that'll be signified as an empty list. Now we're going to add 3 elements: Johnny, Cruz, and Who Is. Now I understand the concept. That is adding to the end. So every time we put this, it's going to be Johnny, and then kind of like in order how I got it here. But here we go. At 5B and 5A, we're simply showing you what it looks like as an empty list, and then we're going to show you that we appended 3 values to it. So now we're going to talk about the insert method. Now the insert method is used when you want to put an item in a specific place. So with that being said, the life list, we're going to insert in the second position, which in the second position, and then we're going to insert the value thoughts. So all it does is simply move sex from being into the second position, and we just put thoughts right there. We don't get rid of sex or whatever's in the second position at the time. We just simply scoot it over to the third, and everything, it's a domino effect after that. Everything goes down one. And like I said, remember that when you're working with elements within a list, that the count starts at 0. So if you're getting a second, you're actually getting a third. And here we're gonna start removing elements in the list, deleting an element. Life.append crack. Now here we're just gonna add this element just so I can use a delete statement on it. So here is how you use the delete statement. And once you use this delete statement, you can no longer use this value in the list at all. So you have to re-add, you have to append the value back in order to reuse, or in order to use it later on down in your programming. Now, this is just explaining everything I just told you about this. So simply all you do is just put the delete statement right here, and then the list of where you want to get the element that you want to delete, and then inside the square brackets, since I just added this, I gave it a -1 and it removed the last one. So I'm gonna scroll down a little bit here so I can slow down, horse. So we're gonna scroll down. All right, to 7. Now, this is adding crack. As you can see, we don't want crack, bad crack. So we simply just delete it out of our life. And we can no longer use this. Now, another way of removing elements from a list is called the pop method. Now, by default, whenever you pop an item, it removes the last item in the list. And with here, we're going to show you, we're going to show the original list right here. And that's Honda, BMW, Suzuki. So when you pop in an item, you'll want to, when you remove it from this list, and to reuse it, you're going to want to create a variable and then motorcycles.pop right here. So you'll want to put it at the end like this. And what this is telling Python is that to grab the last item in the list, store it in motorcycles.pop, and then we're going to be able to access it by storing it into a variable called pop bikes. So that way when we print it, we can show you which item that it took from the actual list. So we can see here that it took Suzuki. And that's how we're able to reuse it in different ways. Now here we can also, like I said, by default, without adding any element inside of the parentheses, it takes the last item from the list. Now, favorite bike now has an element inside of it. So when we pop the list motorcycles, we then put in what element we want to take from that list, and then then to show you which element we took, we're going to create a sentence, a print statement telling you what my favorite bike is using that element within that variable, and we're going to apply the title method to that. So here you can see my favorite bike was a BMW. I just loved it. And the BMW is favorite bike right here with the dot title method. You see how it's got a capital B right there? That's how you know it used the title method. Now here we're going to show you how to use the remove method. You can use the remove method to get an item by name. So here we have a list called candies with 3 individual elements of Reese's, Hershey's, and Kit Kats. And now we're going to print this out so you can see it. And then we're going to use the remove method right here. So we'll get the list that we want, and then we'll apply the remove method to that list, and then we'll remove the element that we know by name from that list. So here you see that we just only have 2 elements, Reese's and Kit Kat, which is this is pretty simple stuff, guys. I'm kind of like not trying to make this a long video. So if you want to take the extra time, you can read it, but I'm really explaining everything short and sweet for you guys. So with the remove method, it only deletes the first occurrence of the value, Hershey. So let's say, for instance, if we was to say print it again later on, then it would still have Hershey's back into it. So, but we can use I'll show you later on, because we can use for loops to remove multiple items into the list. If there was multiple Hershey's in there, Like it was like Hershey and Kit Kat and Hershey. It only delete this first Hershey right here. So that's how that remove method. But I'll explain that later. Using the sort method, it lets you change the order of the list to alphabetical order. So here we're going to print the original list, as you can see at 10. And then at 10A, we're going to do the same list, but put it in alphabetical order. So what we're going to do is just take the list, put a dot, and then we're going to tell Python to use the sort method on this list. So this would then, as you can see, it has all jumbled up right there. Now it's organized in alphabetical order. So GTA, NBA, and then Red Dead is the alphabetical order of that list. Now one thing, the sort method changes the order of the list permanently. So you can, so in order to, if you wanted to put it in reverse alphabetical order, you can do reverse equal true. Excuse me. But by default, the way I understand this is whenever it's like this, reverse, like no, whenever it's like this, reverse right here is equal to false. So when we tell Python that we want to change the reverse variable inside of the sort method, we'll to true. This just simply puts Red Dead first, NBA 2K next, and then GTA last. It's basically just reverse the order that it's already in. Now, using the sorted function, this simply just temporarily puts the list in alphabetical order. So if you just wanted to use it one time, instead of making it permanent throughout your whole program, you'll simply just use the sorted function. And as you can see here, the original list, GTA games, and then we put it back into GTA. I mean, we put it into alphabetical order, and then we reprint that, and now it's in reverse alphabetical order all over again. So, like I said, it's just temporary for a one-time use. Now, the reverse method does not put items in alphabetical order, but it just reverses the original order. So I created a new list, and I gave you two elements in the list. It's called test1 and test2. Let me scroll this down so we can catch up. All right, so here, as you can see in 12, we have the original list, test1, test2. And then in 12A, we have the reverse order of that list, which is test 2 and test 1 now. So what we simply did was we gave Python the list, gave it a dot to let it know that this method we would like to be applied on this list, and then we simply just print it and to show the results. Test comes first. Now, if we wanted to find out how many items are in a list, we'll use the link function or the len function, which finds the links of the list. So showing you how many items are in the list, we'll just simply create a print statement, and then we'll put the len link, and then we'll wrap the list that we want inside of the length function's parentheses, and then we'll have to do an outer parenthesis just to complete the print statement parentheses. So here we're going to print out the output, and as we can see that there's two elements inside of the list. So this will help you out understanding that if you had like a long list, it'll definitely be useful to figuring out how many items are in that list. Now, avoiding syntax errors with working with a list, when forgetting about the all by one error, remember Python considers, I'm just pressing this point because whenever I first started out, I had a difficult time doing the off by one error. No, with the off by one error, and it was just something that I needed to remember. So I figured it would help you guys out too. So remember, the list starts at the count of 0, not 1. Now you get a traceback that tells you your item that you're asking for is out of range. So for example here, you see that test is equal to 2 items, right? 0 and 1. So when we print 2, when we try to get the third element, it's gonna print out. You're gonna see like last time when we had the trace back. It's gonna say list of index out of range, was basically telling you that there is no third item in this list, and you can't print it out if there's nothing there, right? So you also get that same error if you're trying to pull an element from an empty list. So if you're thinking that you're adding items to the right list, and then you go to print it and try to figure it out, it's going to give you that same out of range error. Now, this is looping through a list. Now, this is what I was talking about with the remove method, how when it was only removing the first occurrence. Now, within this for loop, you can use a remove method to delete multiple occurrences. But I'll show you that a little bit later. So looping allows you to take the same action or set of actions and use them for every item in the list, a for loop. The for loop will help get every name from the list and print them one by one instead of accessing them one by one. So what this is basically stating is that we create a list called hobbies, and then within that list we give it elements of what I consider my hobbies. So I like programming, basketball, and video game. So whenever you're creating a for loop, you must start with for, and this tells Python that's what you're starting. And then we must create a temporary variable to store the items in this list into this variable. And then we're telling Python to use this variable for the items in hobbies. So this is how this will be explained. For hobby in hobbies. So for the items in hobbies, store them into hobby, and then we're going to use hobby. We're going to use hobby to use our print statement. Now here, I just showed you that we can still use the original list and access individual elements if needed be. And we can also do that with the temporary variable too. So let me you see how it loops, and instead of me going like print element, or like this, instead of me doing this all day, my favorite hobby is the first element, print. My other favorite hobby is basketball. So I will ask for the first one, and then I do the print. Instead of doing that repeatedly, this automates all that, and then it's formatted within this piece of code. So whenever you first initiate your for loop, you always want to have a colon right here. Must always remember that. And then after that, your next line will be indented. You must have that indentation there to let Python know that this piece of code right here is part of this for loop. And then now you can add as many indented pieces of code as you would like. It's no limit. It's just that over a period of time, I'm gonna show you how like that could be confusing, and you'll want to break it down into other ways. But for the main part is understanding for loops. So like I was saying, to avoid the indentation errors, forgetting to indent, uh, you'll get an error just basically saying indentation error expected and an indentation block. So basically that's stating like you need to indent this piece of code, because that's what Python is expecting out of a for loop for the next line to be indented. So if now let's say like we did indent this, and then we had another piece of code that we wanted to indent. If it's going to run like let me show you. Let me see. I'm gonna show you. All right. So like say for instance, within our for loop, we already printed this out, and let me show you. All right, so we already printed this out, right? This is how that looks. Now, if we wanted to add, let's print hobbies again, and we wanted it like formatted like this with a new line and everything. This it will print out the list, but it won't do it as part of the for loop. So that's where you would get that logical error. Like it's worked properly, but it just doesn't produce the outcome that we wanted. So that's how that is explained as far as logical error. Now, all right. Forgetting to indent. Always remember to indent the next line when creating a for loop, or you get an error. Now, note if your programming is running but does not produce the right results, then that is called a logical error. Now, another indentation error is called by unnecessarily indenting, which is, as you can see previously when we created that message and that variable message and put the string as the value inside of it, we wouldn't have needed to indent that print statement because it's just a simple variable and a simple string, a simple value. But and Python doesn't call for you to do that. So in order for it to process this code correctly, you're gonna have to put print back over here towards the beginning of the line. And if you get this error, indentation error, unexpected indentation, then you'll know why. It's because obviously something that's not supposed to be indented is accidentally indented. So now, like I was saying, after the for loop, it should be a colon or you'll get this error. Syntax error, invalid syntax, which basically is telling you that you're not setting up the for loop properly, how Python needs to interpret it. So, and then we're also going to make a numerical list, which is where we're at, number 2. Now, here we're going to use the range function, and the range function makes it easy to generate a series of numbers. Now, using the range function, we create a series of numbers. So here within the for loop, we're simply telling Python that with this range of numbers, 1 through 4, because of the off by 1 error, 1 through 4, we like to store 1 through 4 into the temporary variable value. That way we can print out this range. So this is all we're doing, is just generating a range of numbers from like 1 to 4 or whatever the beginning and the end value is. But remember, whatever the end value is going to be off by 1. So as you can see here, and 2, using the range functions to create a series of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we asked for 5. You see how the off by 1 error is there? Now, we can also convert this range of numbers into a list by using the range function. And as you can see here, into a list. And this is just creating it to that list format if you want to use it like that. And as you can see, you got 1 element, 2 element, 3 elements. So you can access individual numbers through creating the range of numbers into a list if you wanted to. Now, using the range function to print out only even numbers. Now, when explaining this, we first create a variable called positive numbers, and our value is the list function wrapped around the range function. Now, within the range function, we have 2, which in this order, it tells Python that we want to start the range at 2. And then we have 11, which tells Python we want to end the list at or before 11. And since how we're only doing even numbers, it'll stop at 10. So, and then we have and here we have 2, which this 2 basically tells Python every time that we start we start at a number, we would then multiply that number by 2. So for instance, we start at 2, and then we'll multiply that number by 2, which equals 4. And then we'll start at 4, and we'll multiply that number by 2, which would give us 8. And all the way until we get close to 11. So as you can see here at 2b, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, which is all the even numbers from 2 to 11. Now, remember, guys, whenever you're creating, you can do odd numbers too. But whenever you're creating this, remember that you need the last number, and it tells Python to multiply it to this number. I mean, multiply it to this number. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to use the range function in the loop to and in this loop we're going to create square numbers, square values. So here in the for loop, we just simply tell Python that we want to store all the range 1 through 10 into the temporary variable value. Now, then we're going to create a variable called square. Now, within this variable, we have all the numbers that are stored in the temporary variable, and we have square rooted them by 2. So everything, all the squared numbers are stored inside of this square. Now, then we're going to take the empty list, and then we're going to do the append method. And then we're going to give it the squared values that is stored in this variable, and we're going to add this to this empty list. Now, all this is stating is that once all these are squared, they just go into the list within this for loop. So every time it runs this for loop, after it gets done with 1, it'll create this. It'll go through these indented, and then it'll restart the for loop, and then it'll go to 2. So with that result, we get 1, 4, 9. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how that is. That's how that is. And this is just basically just stating that what I just said. All right, so now we're gonna get rid of the square. We're gonna get rid of this, and we're gonna show you a simpler way to write this also. Now, the reason why I established it this way is so when we start chopping it down, it'll be a better way to explain the changes of it, and it also shows you different way of where you can use it. Now, with this, you'll obviously want to use it like for, let's say, for instance, if it's short like this, and you want everybody to see what the process is, or something like that, And then here we're just simply creating the same for loop, storing the values into the 1 through 10 into the temporary variable. But this time we're adding all the square numbers straight into squares instead of storing it into that temporary variable. So it's same concept, same output, is just a different way of organizing that information or producing that information. And now we're going to do list comprehension with that same list. Now, I'm not really too good with list comprehension because it's all about combining strings and stuff like that. I haven't got used to this, but I understand how to do this perfectly well. So basically explaining this list comprehension. List comprehension combines the for loop and the creation of new elements into one line and automatically appends them to the new list. So all this is basically stating is instead of having this empty squares list, we simply got squares equals to value. The list. Remember the square brackets are for the list. So we got the value is going to be whatever the value is, or whatever variable is the value. We're going to multiply whatever's inside that variable by the square root of 2. So we're simply stating now that for the values right here, we're gonna apply that square root algorithm into the range method. So all these numbers that are going to be stored in here are going to be uh, to the second power automatically. So it's a definitely shortcut. And also notice how you don't have to have the colon at the end for the simple fact this is how list comprehension works. Uh, Here is explaining everything I said. Now the minimum and the maximum and the sum functions, these are only used for specific to list numbers. So here we created a list of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9, and then here we used at 4. We're going to use 4a. We're going to find out the lowest number using the min or the minimum function. So here we're going to use put it in a print statement. So we'll print and then we use min into with some parentheses, and then inside of those min parentheses would be the list of what we want to find the amount of numbers is. So the lowest number in that list is obviously 1. Then we're going to find the highest number in that list, which would be processed by the max function. And we'll simply just create a print statement, put max, and then within those two parentheses, we'll put the list of what we want the max number of. So that max number is 9 in that list. And then also we can find the sum of all the elements into this, all the numbers in this list. So simply by doing that, we'll do same process, put it in the print statement, do the sum, and then we'll do the parentheses, and then we'll put the list inside of that parentheses. Now, the sum of it is 45 for that list. So 1 plus all these, 1 through 9 plus all of them equals 45. All right, so now we're going to use slice to work with parts of a list. Now, when you're working with slice, it simply just tells Python that you want to work with only a certain amount of elements. So here we create a list of players called Charles, Michael, Florence, Eli, and then we're gonna print it out. But when we put it into the print statement, we put the list inside of the print statement that we want to slice, and then we simply just put the square brackets, and then to access the elements, and then we'll put a 0, a colon, and a 3. Now, the first number in the slice, it just tells you where you want to start pulling the items from, or start showing, or what items you want to start working with. Now, the colon just separates, but the 3 tells you where you want to end the items in the list. So basically, we're going to be working with the first 3 elements. So as you can see, 0, which is Charles, and then 3, which would be Michelle. Now you see how it only has these. Now it starts with this in a slice, and then it ends with this one in a slice. So we're only working with these 3, and we still have 2 other elements that we're not seeing here. So that's understanding slice a little bit, well, fully, honestly. So here, you get rid of the first slice. So with the first element, with the first value gone, it's going to start automatically at the beginning, and it's going to pull everything into the 4th element. Now here you see we get the first 4 items. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Florence. It starts at Florence, and it automatically pulls all of them. And then if we wanted to get rid of the second number, the ending number in a slice, we can simply just put 2, the first value of where we want to start the slice, and then it'll pull everything from where that value is. So here you see that we put 2 right here. This is the 3rd item, and then the 4th and the 5th item right here was also being pulled. So as you can see. Now here, if we wanted to print the last 3 items, we can use -3 into this. Now for 5E, this shows you how printing the last 3 elements with -3 in a slice. And you see that it pulls out Michelle, Florence, and Eli. So, and you'll put that into the first one, because is where we want to start, and then we're going to pull from there, since we're working from the end, from a certain point at the end and forward. Now you can also use slice in a for loop. So for players in players is telling Python to get all the items all the way until Michelle. So you got Charles, Martin, Michelle that are pulled from there. Start from the beginning and pull them all the way. And then we're going to print that list out, which is right here, and that's 5F. So a way to copy, you can also use slice to copy list. So what I did here is I created a simple list of my foods, and then what I did is I created a variable called my friends, and then I gave that the value of my list plus an empty slice. So I don't have the first or the second, and this basically just tells Python to grab everything out of the list, and then here I'm gonna show you that it's 2 separate lists, but just with the same inputs. I mean the elements. So you see I got pizza tacos for my list and then pizza tacos for my friends list. Now, just to show you that we can work with these lists individually, I added 2 special items, and I guess my friend really likes jelly because yeah, nothing but jelly in there. All right, so yeah, I added 2 items, and as you can see here, showing you the new items in each list. So here you can see that we can work with my food by adding ice cream individually, and my friend food also. And it all started off with a copy of my list. Now, here we're going to explain tulips. Now, tulips is an immutable object in Python. So basically what that means is that you cannot change the items in here like how we did earlier with the regular list, because then you'll get a type error, which is tulip objects does not support item assignment. You see how I try to change the first value into the dimensions tulip. Now, one thing you can distinguish from lists, they're the same concept, just different design. Right here, you have parentheses instead of square brackets, but you can still access each element individually, like dimensions 1 be 200, and then, stuff like that. Now, the only way you can change a tulip is if you redefine it. Like here you see it's 200 and 250 for dimensions. Now we got dimensions with 400 and 100. So this is redefining dimensions, and that's the only way you'll be able to change that. Now, in order to use for loop, we'll just simply define dimensions again with new values so you can see the difference. And then we'll just do 4 dimensions, creating a temporary variable, and then in dimensions we're going to store all the values 100 and 50 into the temporary variable, and then we're going to print that, which is stated right here as 6b. So now I'm gonna introduce you a little bit into print statements, but I mean not print statements, but if and out statements. Just for the simple fact is here we're gonna do some code testing, and we're gonna do a process. We're gonna do a type of test called I'm explain conditional test to you. So here, this is just simply stating that if I okay, all right, I'm thinking of how to break it down. Okay, so here we're creating my simple list, right? Let me get this up. All right. So here we're creating a simple list. As you can see, Audi, Lambo, BMW, Kia. Now, here we're going to use the if-else statements to see if BMW is in the list. So we create a for loops and use a temporary variable fave cars in favorite cars. So all items stored in favorite cars will be in fave cars. So this is stating in this indented piece of code that if fave cars has a value equal to BMW, when we print that value, put it in all upper. So remember, it's going to be all capital letters. And if the value is not BMW, we would then use the else block, which would then print it in this format, and all the ones that are not BMW will have dot title method applied to it. So as you can see here, Audi has a capital A, Lambo has a capital L, and then BMW has a capital B, M, and W in it. And then Kia obviously has a capital K. So this, and basically the else block is whatever's not met in the if statement will be given this line of code at the in the else block. And then we have conditional test. So an if statement output is determined by true or false, which is called a conditional test. And Python uses a value true or false to decide whether which code should be executed in the if statement. So again, you see why I wanted to explain it to you a little bit. Now, the if element, okay. All right, so here we can see that this condition was met for the value BMW. So it gave out true. And we can see this condition was met for all the other values in the list, which made this true for them. Now, the reason why it wasn't true why this wouldn't be true for BMW is because, as you can see, the condition, or no, why this wasn't true for like Kia, because you can see what we're asking Python to do if it finds a certain value. Now, in some parts of this lesson, this was referring to because you can put into a terminal, but I figured out like all you have to do is just print and then do it like that. Now, the simplest way to do a conditional test check is first we will put a value in a variable and use the equality operator to see if the value in the variable is the same as the one we want to compare it to. So basically, what I did here is I created a variable do, which equals to lowercase x. And then I print the original list do so you can see what that value is, which is lowercase x. And then I create a conditional test. Now, usually what we'll do is we would take this to the Python terminal, and then actually I can show you right quick. So this is the Python terminal that you would have downloaded at the beginning of this video. So here you can see I'm going to take, I'll just create it right here then, instead of doing all that. So as you can see, we're going to do do equals y, right? And then we're going to be like do equals to x. And you see how we get false? Because the value stored in do is not equal to what we're trying to compare it to. Now in order that when checking for equality, we can testing for equality is affected by how you compare the items you're trying to test. So this is basically stating that what I did here is I recreated the value into a capital X for the variable do, and then I compared the capital X with the lowercase x. And the only reason why I did that is just so you can see the difference between the two. See, capital X is a whole different entity to Python than lowercase x. So you got to remember that. That's why we got a false here. because they're two different things in Python. Now, if the capital letter doesn't matter to you when you're testing your condition, when you're doing a conditional test, you can simply just convert the value that's in here. That's, as for example, you can see that's capital J. You can simply just convert that into dot lower, and then whenever you compare these two, no matter if this is a capital J or not, um, or if this is a capital J, whenever you compare these two, it's always going to be a lowercase j into this value because we use dot lower method on that on that variable. So as you can see here, that 8D is using the dot lower method to ignore the capital J, and it resulted in a true for the conditional test. Now, here we're going to be checking to see if a value is in a list, and in Python the exclamation point means not. So here we're going to see we're going to do the requested toppings equals mushrooms, and then we're going to print dash. Well, I don't need to explain that, but this is just simply stating the title. But here we're going to do an if statement, which says if requested toppings does not equal anchovies, then print hold the anchovies. So this is just basically saying if the value in requested toppings is not equal to anchovies, then just hold the anchovies, please. Got time for that, you know what I'm saying? Nah, but but yeah, but that's pretty much it for that. It's a good way to check if something's not in there, then to check if it is in there. That make or no, checking that it's not in there is the same thing as, I don't know. So the numerical comparison. Here we're going to compare numbers in the format we was using previously. Now remember, all we simply doing here is just this saying is 18 the same as 18. Give the variable and then age equals 18. So here we're going to go to 9, and we can see that comparing two numbers, that's true because 18 is 18, right? But here we're going to determine, we're going to compare whether two numbers are not equal. So here, as you can see, the answer, the variable answer has 17 stored at the value. So here in this if statement, we're going to ask Python, if answer is not equal to 42, print 42 is not equal to 17. And as you can see here, that it printed it out. See, this is, like I said, Python was built for kids. So all this is simple. You can also compare using less than or greater than, or you can do less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, and you compare those values like that. Now, one thing when I first started out, even in math, when I was going to school, is I always got confused by the greater than or less than. So one thing that they always told me was the mouth eats the biggest item. So it's like an alligator. Now we're going to be checking for multiple conditions, and then when you're checking for multiple conditions, there's two ways where we can check for those, and that's using the keyword and, or using the keyword or. Now this helps you test two conditions at once, or three conditions, or however many conditions you want to test at one time. So here we establish age 1 as 25, and then we give age 2 the value of 19. So here we're going to be using the keyword and to compare the two ages. So here we're just stating that age 1 is less than 19, and we're going to compare we're also going to test out the conditional of age 2 is greater than or equal to 18. And I think I'm using that right. Yeah. So it returned false because age 1 is not less than or equal to 19. And seeing how age 2 is greater than 18, we still get false because they're both not true. See, with the and statement, you have to both of these conditions have to equal the true when using and, the keyword and. Now using the keyword or, all these tells you that one of them has to be right with so I probably need to change this to 18, so that could be equal to true. All right, so let me go all the way down. I gotta find where we're at. All right, we're at 9. Come on, baby, where you at? All right, so here you can see that 9C is equal to true because 18 is less than 19, but 19 is greater than 18. So that condition wasn't met, but this one was. So it gave us true for the conditional test. Now, using the keyword in, this is how you check to see if item is inside of a variable. So as we can see that mushrooms is in this list, but pepperonis is not. So you'll get false here and you'll get true here for that list. Now here we're going to check whether an element is not in a list by using a for loop, by using the keyword not in. So this right here, we created a variable for banned users, and then we created a list of users that have access to our website. And here we create a print statement saying you are banned from our website. So this will get all the values in this banned user list, and then it will print it out at the bottom here. So within this if statement, we're saying if banned users is not in users, which has permission to use the website, we'll then tell them that they are banned from this website. So we then print the banned users, and where are we at? 11. And here we'll see that you are banned from our website, Chris and Johnny. So you see how Chris and Johnny is banned from our website. Now, Boolean expressions is just another word for conditional tests. A Boolean is either true or false, just like a conditional test. Now, here we're going to introduce dictionaries. A dictionary in Python is a collection of key value pairs. A dictionary is composed of being wrapped in curly brackets with key values inside. Every key is connected to its value by a colon, and each key value pair is separated by a comma. You can store as many key value pairs as you want in the dictionary. Example, this is what a dictionary looks like. So here we have the variable, we have the key, we have the value green, and then we also have the comma, which separates the other key value, key at points, and then value 5 for that dictionary. Now, accessing the values in the dictionary to get rid of to get the item associated with the key, give the name of the dictionary, and then place the key inside of the square brackets. So here, as you can see in 1A, the value for the key color is green. So in the print statement, we gave the list, and then we gave square brackets to get the element from the oh wait, we use square brackets to get the key from the the value from color. So here we see that the value is green, and this will be explaining. Now this will show us shows how we can use connotation to get the value 5, which is from the key points in a statement. So here we took the new we created a new variable to store the value of points inside, so that way we can easily use it into the print statement. So you just earn, and remember, when you're working with numerical values, you have to switch it to the string representation in order to use it into a connotation. So here we put the string function onto the new point, which converts that 5 into the string, so we can use it here. And as you can see at 1C, you just earned 5 points. Is what we're telling. Is what we're printing out on the output. So let me scroll this up a little bit so we can get seen here. And in order to add new key values into your dictionary, you'll simply just give the name of the dictionary followed by the new key in square brackets and the value of the new key after the equal sign. So here you can see that the original list is printed here. Color green, key color, value green, key points, and value 5. So you see we only have 2 key value pairs in this dictionary at this moment. And then we come down here and then we give Python the name of the list for these two. And then we give Python what we want to call that key that we're adding to the dictionary. And then we'll give the value of what we want that key to hold inside of that dictionary. So here we do the same process for the Y position also, which would be 25 for the key. And now, as you can see in 2A, we have 2 new key values, X position, which would be the key, and then the value would be 0. And then we have Y position, which would be the key, and then the value would be 25. Now, we're going to add key value pairs to an empty dictionary. So this will be telling Python that here we're going to create an empty dictionary called alien0. And in order to create an empty dictionary, we'll simply just give it a variable, and the value of that variable will be just 2 curly brackets. And then in order to add values to that, key value pairs to that dictionary, we would then give the key. No, first we'll give the dictionary, and then we'll give square brackets, and then we'll give the name of the key that we want to add, and then we will give the value blue to our new key value pair. And then in our second new key value pair, we'll give the dictionary, and then we'll put it into square brackets, and then we'll give the we'll put the key as points, and then we'll give this one 200 points. So this is how you add new key value pairs into a dictionary. And as you can see here, we have in our new dictionary, the key color, the value is going to be blue, and then the key is going to be points, and then the value is going to be 200 for our 2 key value pairs that we have added. Next, we will be modifying values in a dictionary. Now, in order to modify values into a dictionary, you would need to give the name of the dictionary you want, and then the key you want to change. So here, for instance, we're going to be showing you the original dictionary, which, remember, we had the color as blue for where we had the key color, and then we had the value as blue. So we're going to be changing this one, as you can see. First, we're going to give the dictionary that we want to make this change to, and then we're going to supply square brackets, and then within those square brackets, we're going to be giving the key that we would like to give the new value to. And then the new value is going to equal to yellow. And as you can see here is that the key color is given a new value yellow, which will be permanently changed as long as that's set up the way it is. Now here we're going to be using the if-else statement into in modifying values in a dictionary. Now this example will be explaining how to use the if-else statement to modify a value in a dictionary. Now the x increment stores the value that determines how far the alien should move. So whenever I'm about to explain it. All right, so first we take we create a new dictionary called aliens, and we give it the same key values as the ones we added. Color, and the value going to be green. Key points, and then the value 5. Key X position and the value 0. Y position and the value 25. Now, using this, first we're going to show you the original dictionary. So the original dictionary is what's right here. And then what we're going to do is then first we will need to add the key speed and the value slow in order to be able to change the X increment of that. So here we're going to have our dictionary, and then we're going to create a new key called speed and give it a value of medium. Now, after creating a new key and speed value, we create the if else statement to determine how far the alien would move. Now, remember the X increment shows you how far it would move right. And we're gonna base the movement off how far it moves right by how fast it's going as far as speed. So if the dictionary alien and the key speed is equal to slow, we'll move the X increment over one space. So ELF is basically stating that if this condition isn't met, or if the value for speed is not slow, then we will come here and Python would check to see if the value of speed is medium. And um, if it is equal to medium, then our X increment will be 2, which tells you that that object alien will be moving 2 spaces instead of 1 if the value is equals to medium. Now, if none of these conditions are met, slow or medium, then else would be what will be applied to it, and the X increment would be equal 3. Now, remember, in this conditional test, if is one option, and if that option is not met, then else is another option, and if both of these options aren't met, then else is what's applied. Now, once the X increment is calculated, the results are added to X position. So now we're going to change the position of where this alien is current at. Now, as you remember, the X position right now is 0. So what we're doing is we're going to give we're going to take the X position and then create a new value of that X position. So alien X position plus X X increment, it will is adding this together. So 0 plus, since our speed was medium, it would do plus 2. So now that 0 is a 2, and then we'll print that alien here. So remember the default, the original dictionary is 0. Now once we modified it, we modified it by adding the new key speed, and you see that our speed is medium. But you also see that our X position is 2 now, because we added what our original value of our X position was with the new value of the X increment, and then we printed that out. And now we're going to talk about how to remove key value pairs from a dictionary. Now, it's the same concept as a list. We're just showing you how you can do the same thing within a list inside of a dictionary. Now, here we're going to delete the value Y position. And that will be 5. So here you can see that we don't have Y position inside of here like we have here. See the Y position equals to 25 after the X position. Here we just have X position, and then it converts automatically into, then it goes to the next key, which is speed and our medium. So here what we did is we simply just used the delete statement, gave it the dictionary that we want to delete the item from, and then we gave it the key of what we wanted to delete. Now, when you delete a key, you also delete that value as shown here. So the whole thing is gone. And then we print that out just to show you. Now we're going to, whoa. Oh yeah, okay. Now we're going to show you a different way of formatting a dictionary. You can use a dictionary to store one kind of information about many different things. Now here we're talking about favorite language, and the keys is on the left, which is Jen. Her favorite language is Python. Sarah, her favorite language is C. Edward, his favorite language is Ruby, and then Phil, his favorite language is also Python. So when you need more lines, now when you're creating a dictionary like this, we format multiple lines. So note that when you need more lines, need more than one line, just press enter after the opening brace, which is right here, and then once you set this one how you want it, the first line how you want it, the rest will follow. And you see how it's all matched up right here. It would all follow that same concept. Now the indent of the first line is one level, and right here, so this is one level, and this is one level is 4 spaces. So you press the space bar 4 times and you'll get one level of in Python. And make sure you have a closing brace at the end when organizing like this, because I know it can get kind of confusing. Now you see how my closing brace is for this one right here. You always want to make sure you close your dictionary up. Now, breaking down a long print statement, here we just simply choosing an appropriate point to break the print statement, and then add a connotation operator at the end of the first line. So here what we would do is we can simply just take that like that, and since how that was too long, we can just kind of like space it out, organize it correctly, and you can see how it's still valid Python code. It's just more organized for you to work with. Now I gotta find my place for you to work with. Where are you at, baby? All right, here we are. And then breaking down a long print statement, and it says Jen favorite Python language. So here you can see that we took we used the favorite language dictionary, and then we got the key Jen, and then we gave Jen the dot title method. So what this basically does is tells you that Jen with a capital J, his favorite language is Python, and that's how that would work. Now, now we're gonna be looping through a dictionary, and that would be here at 7. So here we're going to create a new dictionary for this example, and we're going to call this one user 0, and this is basically same concept as the last one. It's just stating that username, and then the value would be F or whatever that is, and then the first name be Enrico, and last name will be Fermi. So this is just a combination of the first initial and the last name. So using a for loop to print all the keys, value pairs in user. So here we're going to create a for loop, and when looping with the dictionary, you you separate the individual values by giving it two temporary variables. And what these temporary variables, as you can see, is that when Python loops through these through this dictionary, we're going to store all the keys into the first temporary variable keys, and we're going to store all these values right here into the second temporary variable value. That way we can work with them individually. Now, the dot items method returns a list of all key values pairs and stores them in a temporary variable key value. So there's a way of separating everything and organize it properly. And as you can see within this for loop, that key user value, the username, and then key first name, and then value Enrico, and then key last name would be value Fermi. So you can see how it's separated everything as far as doing it like that. Now, you don't have to use the temporary variable key and value. You don't have to keep this name, but it was just good so you can see how it is divided between the two in the dictionary. And now we're going to use the dot key method. The dot key method just simply allows you to output only the keys in the dictionary. So here we create a dictionary called Lucky, Hello World, and then this, and then key. Now, within this for loop, we're going to tell Python to grab all the items in the dictionary and just store them into one variable, which is temporary variable. And then we're telling Python to get all the keys and just store them into the temporary variable by using that. And then note here that looping through the keys is the default behavior when looping through dictionaries. So both create the same output. You can use for luck in lucky.keys, or you can just simply do for luck in lucky. And using the dot keys method helps your code more easier to read, so they know that what you're doing. But this is how this looks right here when you're printing it. Now we're going to use the key method to create a value. Now here, guys, you might have to just space this out, reorganize it. Whoa, come back here, buddy boy. And I will explain this in a minute, but I'm just gonna reorganize. I don't know why it was formatted like this, but well, I do, but I don't know because it's the black formatting that I have installed in my workbench. And like I said earlier, I'll put a link in below to show you videos on how to download everything so you can understand all the stuff that you need. And then here, if I can get all this stuff organized, right? Sorry, guys. It's usually I don't know why it does this, honestly. All right, now everything's over. Okay, now we can see what's going on here. All right, so here I use the original list. I mean, the original dictionary, but then I create a list of Jen and Sarah. These are just the names. So here, what I do is I create a for loop, right? And then I store all the keys from this dictionary into the name, into the temporary variable name. And then I use that temporary variable in this if statement to say if all the keys, if the keys in this dictionary matches the names that are in the friends list, we're going to print out hey, and the name that matches it in dot title with the dot title method. And then we're gonna say I see your favorite language is, and then we're gonna take the dictionary favorite language, and then we're going to get the variable get the key name, and then we're gonna do dot title method to that. So we're just telling Python that within that variable, within this dictionary, print out the names that are in this friends list. So in dot title method. Here, it's just another way of showing you guys how you can still use the key method as far as. All right, let me find my place right here. Intro, what number we're on? Number 8A. All right, so here you see that using the dot keys method to create a message for the ones in the friends list. So, hey, Jen, I see your favorite language is Python. So this is basically stating that that this is that Jen is in the friends list, but she's also in the favorite language dictionary. So it also states that Sarah's in there too. So then it prints out the statement telling us that we see that her favorite language is C. Now, this is explaining on why the temporary variable is used twice. And for the first part in it, we use the temporary variable name in the for loop is used to store all the keys from the dictionary in favorite language. And then in the if statement, we use the temporary variable name to compare the keys from the dictionary favorite language to the list of friends. And if the dictionary / list elements match up, then we'll print a message for the name in that if statement. So here, this is just explaining everything that's going on. Now we're going to talk about using the dot keys method to see if a particular element is in a dictionary. So here we have the favorite language dictionary, and then we have an if statement telling us if Brad is not in favorite languages, then we're going to want to print out Brad, go take the poll. So this is just telling Python, self-explanatory what I just said. If Brad is not in the favorite language, print Brad, go take the poll. So I'm telling you, this is definitely, I'm telling you, this is so simple. And as you can see here, it prints it out. Brad, go take the poll, because his name is not in here, right? So now we're going to use the sorted function before looping, and this is basically just going to temporarily put all the items and that all the keys in the stored dictionary favorite languages in alphabetical order. And then with this print statement, we're just telling Python to organize what the output looks like this. So here here I create a print statement thanking everyone for taking the poll at 8C, and you can see how we loop through that, but it's in alphabetical order. You see how Jen is first, but in this one Edward is first, so this is a good way of organizing your work within a for loop if you're interested in that. So here we're going to be looping through all the values in a dictionary, and that would be at 9. So the dot values method returns all the values of a dictionary. And so we're going to print all the values here within the for loop. And, so for name in favorite language values dot key, we're going to just print out all the languages right here. So we see that all our languages are Python, C, Ruby, and Python again. We have two people that like Python, and we're just formatting it like this with the dot title method. As you can see, every one has a capital letter. That's pretty much it for that. It's the same concept. You can do the same thing what you do with dot keys as with dot values. Now we're going to be using the set method. Now, if a dictionary has duplicate of one item, which would be that Python, as you can see, then we'll use the sort method, and it will only print out the first occurrence of this element. So if you got a list of items or a dictionary with multiple items, when you then print this we then print this using the uh, the set method, it would then just print Python, C, and Ruby instead of having two Pythons, as you can see in the original dictionary. Now, this is how we would print 10A, the original list, which is right here. Python, C, Ruby, C is twice. And then what we then would do is when we print our new list, if we just want the first occurrence of Python, we would then put the set method right here at the beginning, and then we will wrap what dictionary we're using or list we're using, and dot values, obviously because we want the values to compare, and we would then finish it off with wrapping everything with an end quotation so everything matches up within that. Now the thing is, it gets kind of tricky, so watch out for too many parentheses. I know it can get kind of hard or confusing whenever you're coding, so watch out for multiple parentheses in the back and make sure you finish off everyone with an ending. Now we're going to talk about nesting, and nesting is basically just combining lists and dictionaries together. So here, nesting is when you want to combine a list inside of a dictionary, a dictionary inside of a dictionary inside of a dictionary, or a dictionary inside of a list. So here at first, did I lose it? Yeah, okay. Now, here we're going to describe a list of dictionaries. So, in this order right here, we see that we have three dictionaries. One for cast, one which will be key act, and then we'll have Jerry, which would be the second, would be the value to act one, and then we'll have points as another key, and then we'll have 10 as another value. And same concept for the rest of these. And then what we do is we create a variable. Sorry, guys, I'm outside and I shut my door. But here we create a variable with all the lists. All the dictionaries into one list. So cast one is right here, and it has all the key value pairs stored in. Same concept with cast 2 and 3. Now, now here, what we do is we're going to create a for loop, and within this for loop, we simply telling Python for every value in records, store it into the temporary variable cast, and then when we print it out, we can see that each individual dictionary is printed out after being inside of a list. So we can do it like that, and that will help consolidate our programming to where we're not having to it'd be about a way to store it, better organize it in a better sense. Next, we're going to be using the range function to create 30 dictionaries. Now, first we're going to start with empty list stored in the variable aliens, and then we're going to make 30 green aliens. So in this for loop, we have told Python that we take a range of numbers 1 through 30, and then we're going to store 1 through 30 into this temporary variable alien number. So then we're going to create a new alien right here with the key value pairs, the key color, and then the value green, and then key points, and then the value 5, and then we're going to do the key speed and the value slow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add that new alien to the empty list alien, and it's going to add that alien 30 times to this list. Now, here we're going to show the first 5 aliens to show you that all 30 dictionaries are in this actual list. Make sure it works. So here we create a for loop with a temporary variable that tells Python to store the first 5 dictionaries with this slice. If you remember that when you get rid of the first one, it gets the first all the way until number 5. So this is just telling you to get the first 5 aliens, and then we're going to store it into the temporary variable aliens, and then we're going to print out those aliens, and then we're going to create we're going to just do a simple triple dot, and that way I can show you how many aliens are actually in this um in this in this list. So within this print statement, there's a one thing I want you to understand is that remember when we're using numbers and stuff like that, you see how this value is 5. So we will still have to convert that into a string because it's part of that key value pair. So here we gotta use the string function, and then we're gonna use the length method to show you how many actual aliens are in this list, which as you can see right here is 30. So we got 30 dictionaries in there, and then each dictionary is in there is an individual item within Python. So even though those are all stored together, they're still separate objects within that list. This is just simply stating that you have to convert the string first before trying to figure out the length in order for this whole thing to be connotated into this print statement. So that has to be done first. And since each one of the aliens are different dictionaries with the same characteristics, we can change the first 3 aliens. And here you can see that I changing the first 3 out of 30 dictionaries. So here we create a for loop, and with the temporary variable, and in aliens we're only going to pull the first 3. And when we pull the first 3, the indented pieces of code in Python simply states that if the alien key value color, if the alien key color is equal to green, we're going to want to change that color to yellow, and then we're going to want to change the key points to 10, and then we're going to want to change the speed to medium. Now here you can see that the original first 5 was slow with speed. The points was only had the value of 5, and then the color was only green. So now we have the first 3 of these 5 are now going to be yellow points. So the color is going to be yellow, the points are going to be 10, and the speed is going to be medium. Now you're probably going to have to, the thing about Python is a very dynamic programming language. So throughout like dictionaries, lists, you're going to constantly be changing stuff depending on what kind of programming or what kind of use you're making or what kind of program you're making. And here we're going to talk about a list in a dictionary. So so here we have a dictionary pizza, and then we have a key crust, and then we have a value called thick, and now we have a key called toppings, and then for that value of that key, it's going to be a list with 2 individual elements, turkey and mushrooms. So so now we're going to create a print statement showing you how to use each individual element, so how to print it. So here we create a print statement stating that you ordered a pizza with the thick, which this would give out the value because we're getting the key crust from the dictionary pizza, and it'll be thick crust pizza with the following toppings. Now here we're going to create a for loop since this is since this is a value with multiple items in it. And we're going to create a for loop for that. So we're going to, in this for loop, we're going to give pizza, and then we're going to get the key of what items we wanted to pull. So here we're going to take turkey and mushrooms, and we're going to store it in this temporary variable. Now, this is simply just formatting it the way we want it to be outputted on the in the terminal. So here we have, where we at? 2. All right, we're at 2. So here you can see that your order is thick crust pizza with the following toppings: turkey, mushrooms, and that's simple. You just everything's explained here. If I'm moving too fast, let me know in the comments. That's why I gave you this material also, so you can do this on your own or as a good refresher if you don't want to watch the whole video. Now, another way of using a list in a dictionary is creating a dictionary, right? And then, remember the favorite language, instead of them only having one favorite programming language, some of them has 2 now. Sarah's just still stuck on that C, huh? She ain't letting that go. But Edward and everybody else, they got Ruby, Go, Python, Haskell, Python, also Ruby. So Jen and Edward probably dating now. I don't know. I don't get into that stuff. Nah, just kidding. But but yeah, so here is another way. So here you remember when we was looping through dictionary and we was separating the key value pairs, where here we just did the same thing, except we just gave it something that's would symbolize what we're working with. So the names Jen, Sarah, Edward, and Phil are going to be stored in here, which are the keys. And then the values, which are going to be stored here, are the list right here, which is the list. And this is going to be all stored into the temporary variable language. Now, in favorite language dot items, you remember that it returns a list of items back into as the output. Now, then we use the item, which returns all key value pairs as a list and store them in name and language. Sorry, guys. So here we got in the for loop, and this is just simply stating where we want to get those from. And then the indented pieces of code. This is going to say for Python to print the name, all the values that's in the name, and dot title with dot title method, and it's going to tell you what their favorite programming is. So, for instance, Jen's favorite language is, and you see how it stops at is, and then we're going to create a for loop, which would then loop through all the values stored in the temporary variable language. So that'd be all your keys in this list format. So here we're going to loop through that, and then we're going to print it out in this format with dot title method applied to those names. So here, as you can see, Jen's favorite language is Python and Ruby. Sarah's favorite language is C, and Edward's favorite language is Ruby, Go, and then so forth. And that's pretty much how that is handled when, as another way of using the dictionary. And you can see the difference, how it's just one, and then how all of them have a list as value, and even this little guy right here. All right, now we're going to do a dictionary inside of another dictionary. And the way this is simply explained is we're going to create a dictionary called users, and then we're going to create a key. Now these two are keys for the user dictionary. Now for the Einstein username, we're going to show you that this is the key for the users, these two usernames, and then these right here are the key value pairs for this key right here. So which it would be another dictionary. Hope that's not confusing. If it's confusing, then just pause the video and read what's down here. It'll explain it a whole lot better. But so basically, yeah, we got two a dictionary here with two keys, and then the value for those two keys is another dictionary which has the key pair values of first, Albert, last, Einstein, location, Princeton. Same concept for M. Curry, Maria, Curry, and then Paris as the values, and then first, last, and location as the keys. Now in here, we're going to print out each one differently. So we're going to use the for loop, and then we're going to use the dot items, and we're going to separate these two values. So here in the username, we can tell that this is the key for the dictionary users. Now here in user info, we could tell this would be the values for the dictionary Einstein and Maria M. Curry, which are also a dictionary. So, so the same concept with the list, just dictionaries. Now here we're gonna print the username to show you what that temporary variable holds, and as you can see, it says A Einstein. And then what we're gonna do is, and then also M Curry right there for the username. Now here what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a variable connotating the individual keys and present their value within what's printed. So here we're going to get the temporary value user info, which is stored all of this information into it. And we're going to pull the first key for each one. And then we're going to present the value of what that key holds. And here for user info last, here you see how we got two last keys. And then we're going to print out the value Einstein and Curry. Now we're going to create a separate variable for the user info location. And as you see, we're going to format it like this. Now we're going to print the full name plus full name.title, which is right here. And then we're going to print the location, which is right here. Now this is a good way of using the dictionary inside of another dictionary. All right, sorry guys, I got a little distracted there. Now we're going to talk about the intro to input and integer functions. And here we're going to explain what the input function does. Now, the only reason I can't display this here is because it's a special way of how you gotta organize this code right here, and it would have been too confusing for you guys. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this piece of code and I'm gonna copy and paste it. Now, remember when I was telling you about that genie here? So this is what I use genie for now. So here I just did Control V for you guys, but here all I did was just copy and paste. So this is basically a simple input function. So here what we are telling Python is to prompt the user. So anything inside of this input function is what we consider a prompt, which is basically instructions on telling the user what kind of information we need, and tell me something you like about Python. And then once the user, because this is going to present this on a terminal, I'll show you in a second. But once the user enters in a value or input, then that input is stored into the variable tell me, and then we will print that input out to show the results. Ah, crap. Hold on, guys. All right, so here we're going to execute. And now you see the prompt, which is telling you, tell me something you like about Python. And I'll be like, everything, duh. That's why I'm doing it, right? All right, so, and then it just prints out what the user inputted. So that's how the input function works. Now, all right, let me do this. Put this back, and then let me find my place again. All right, so find your place. All right, where we at? Okay, so we're here. All right, so basically we're just going to explain this. First, we create a variable called tell me to store the user's input, and within that variable tell me is the input function, and within the parentheses is the prompt. Tell me something that Python. Tell me you like about Python, which will be displayed for the user to respond to. Once the user responds and then pressing enter, the response is stored into the variable tell me. Print tell me tells Python to print the response stored in the variable. Now, whenever you're working with inputs, you're going to want to write a clear prompt. And like I was stating before, this is what's inside the parentheses is your prompt, which is in quotes. And it's easier for the user to be able to follow if you have something that's explained simply. So here we're going to create a print statement out of that out of that uh, input value, and we're going to do that over here at Genie. All right, so carry it over as a comment. All right, so here we can see that the name, we established the name, and then we gave it the input function, and then within that input function is the prompt that's going to tell us, or is going to ask you, please tell us your name. And then once you type in your name and press enter, you would then get this print statement that says hello, and then your name, and dot title with the dot title method applied to it, and then you'll get the exclamation mark at the end. So my name is, well, don't need to put a capital, Kevin, right? And it says hello, Kevin, at the end, which is pretty cool. And as you get more into it, you'll be able to use input statement in different ways to better benefit you. Now, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, whenever you're creating a prompt to store inside the input function, always at the end create space, because whenever the user that way the user will be able to tell the difference between it'll have a little bit more organized between. See, make sure you always add a space at the end of your prompt to separate the prompt from the user input. I mean, it's not necessarily, but it's something that helps you organize way much better. Now here we're going to be writing a prompt with more than one line, and the prompt here we create a variable which says I can probably help you with something, and with this has nothing to do with the input function right now, so here we then establish prompt again, which is this is telling Python to add plus equal, which means add to the end. So this is telling Python to add this string right here to the end of I can probably help you with something. But if you look closely, you can see that we have the /n, which would then put this as a new line underneath. So it'd be looking like this on the on your terminal. And then we're going to create a variable which will store the input from these two statements, these two strings. And here we're going to use the input function, and then we're going to supply the input function with the pre-written prompt that we already have. like this. And then we're going to print a statement using that variable. Where was I? Right here. So here I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna show you guys exactly what this does. All right. All right. So here, as you can see earlier before, what I am going to explain is this is just, everything's, these are the prompts that we're creating. This right here adds to the end. And then this simply just stores the response into a variable, which we can later use into a print statement and connotate it with whatever string or however we want to organize it. So here we're going to execute this pieces of code. And as you can see, all right, so as you can see, you can see the first prompt is equals to I can probably help you with something. And then the plus equal, like if we didn't have the plus equal here, that that line right, oh no, if we didn't have the new line right here, that plus equal would have been it would have been at the end of the whatchamacallit. It would have been right here. This what can I do for you would have been right here if we didn't have that new line right there. And here, so what can I do for you? Master coding. So here we're going to push enter, and you see how we created a string, and as you can see, and then we got our value that was stored into our service input, well, into our service variable, and that's a way you can use that. Let me shut all this crap down. And that's a more way you can write like a multi-line prompt without having like it all the way out here and then a whole bunch of confusion going on. So now we're going to talk about accepting numerical input with integer functions. When using the input function, Python interprets the user input as a string. So anything that's entered inside of this, when this question is prompt, and then the user has to give an input, whenever it's entered, it's automatically stored as a string inside of Python. So here, I have a small example of the outputted is whenever you see numbers with quotes around them, like 21 here, that's how you know that it's a string value, a string representation instead of a numerical representation of it. So how to compare numbers with the user input. So here we're going to simply try to compare without converting it into an integer first. And here we're going to print age is less than or equal to 18. Now, if you remember, all we're doing is we're taking the input from how old they are, and we're just comparing it to 18. Now, remember that Python interprets. We could say that age is 21. Remember, it interprets it as a string at first. So with this simple comparison, we see that we cannot compare string object age with the numerical representation of 18. The traceback that occurs is type error not supported between instances of non-type and integers. So the non-type would be the string representation 21, and the integer would have been the numerical representation of 18. So basically stating that the comparison cannot be made between strings and integers. So in order to compare what the user inputs as their age with the numerical value 18, we'll need to then convert their input into an integer. And in order to do that, we will establish the prompt with the input function in it and store it into variable age. And then we'll take the value, which was 21, wherever it's at, which was 21. Where you at? 21 right here. And we're going to compare that to, we're going to convert that into a numerical representation of a number. So just like how the string function converts string representation or numerical representations into strings, this is how you convert strings into numbers. All right, so here we redefine the variable age with an integer, with the integer function, and then we supply the value that is stored from this prompt into that variable age into the integer function. So if it's confusing on how I said it, you can simply just read this here and it would explain exactly what's going on. Now always make sure you convert integer and store it back into variable for comparing the numbers. So if you did this after you said print this, then Python, it does line of code in order. So this would have came first, and you would have got your error, and it never would have reached this part of where you converted the numerical representation or the string representation of that number into a numerical representation. So that's a major thing you gotta watch out for. Now we're going to talk about the modulo operator. The modulo operator divides one number by another number and returns the remainder. The modulo operator does not tell you how far a number fits. Or, whoa, wait, oh, my bad. Hold on, sorry. The modulo operator does not tell you how many times a number fits in a number. So it's not going to give you the remainder. It's just if the modulo of a number and two, this is the format, is equal to 0, then the number is even. So using the modulo operator to determine if a even or odd number, if the number is even or odd. So here we're going to prompt the user. We're going to prompt the user to enter in a number to see if it's even or odd. Excuse me. So and with this code, like I said, with the user input, you can simply just take it over to Genie and highlight. You can highlight all this code, and you can simply just take it over there and then work with it and tweak with it and stuff like that. Like I'm just giving you a good foundation, and from that you can just build. So this is basically back to it. So this is storing the string representation of a number that the user entered, and then once we get that value that they have entered, we're going to define the variable by converting that value into integer. So now we can compare between numbers. So if numbers, which is the value stored in here, is modulo to 2 and equal to 0, print your number string. We got to convert it and back into a string, and then is even. So else we're going to, if this condition isn't met, then we're going to print your number and say that it is odd. So explaining this, we create a variable numbers with the input function stored inside. Then we convert the string representation of the number the user inputted, and which is displayed right here. Then we create an if-else statement. If numbers modulo 2 equal to 0, this tells Python if the number that the user inputted can be divisible by 2 and equal to 0, then it's even. If not, then we use the else statement, which tells the user that the number is odd. So that's pretty much it for this segment of the to the input and intro to that. Now we're going to go into while loops, and the difference between while loops and for loops is for loops takes a collection of items and execute a block of code once for each item, then ends. The while loop keeps running as long as certain conditions are true. So this is we're going to be using a while loop to count to 5. So here, this variable will be telling us that we'll be telling Python to store the value 1 into the variable current number. And then we're going to create a while loop, you're going to have to start with while. And then we're going to take the value that's stored into this current number variable, and then we're going to compare it to 5. So what this while loop is basically saying, as long as the value in current number is less than 5, then it will print the number. And then after it prints the number, it would take the value that is stored in stored in current number, and then it's going to add a 1 to it. So this is how you would add objects in a for loop or while loop or however, just like how we did with the string added to the end. So here I'm just gonna read this because I feel like y'all should know this. Now, current number plus equals 1 tells Python to add 1 to every number until it reaches 5. So basically, what that is telling Python is 1 plus 1, and then once that is printed, then we would do we'll add 1, and then it'll be 2 plus 1, and then it'll be 3 plus 1, and it'll be 4 plus 1. Everything is stored back into this current number variable. And as you can see, is using a while loop to count to 5, and you can see we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, letting a user know when to quit. Now, I did this. I'm gonna take this over here to Genie, and that way I can better explain this to you. So where's Genie, baby? All right, get rid of all these hashtags. All right, so here in Genie, we're going to use the same concept as we did last time, and we're going to create a variable which has a string in it, which we'll use to prompt our users and tell them what we want out of them. So tell me something and I will print back to you what you tell me. So I ain't add that, but y'all get the concept. All right, so then we're going to plus equal, which is we're going to add this to the end of the prompt, the original prompt. And seeing as how we have plus equal and the dash n right here, it's going to be set up like how it is presented right here, instead of having the enter quit to end program all the way over here, and then it's just a long mess. But and then we're going to create a variable called message, which will equal to an empty string. And I'm gonna explain the while loop, and I'm gonna get back to why this is empty string value. But so remember, to start a while loop, you gotta have the word while, and then we're gonna say while message. So as long as this message is the value in the message is remember the exclamation point means not, and then equal to quit. So basically, as long as this value in the message is not equal to quit, this while loop will continue running. So message equals input prompt. So we then give this variable input prompt. So we store this all this into the input, so the user will be able to react to it. So if the user enters quit, it does not enter quit, then we're going to print the message. So okay, I know that's kind of confusing, so I'm gonna do it this way. All right, so on this first line, the while loop compares this value right here, quit, to the message variable right here, and it does that first before doing all this extra code, all the indented code, and then it once it prints the prompt out on your terminal, it'll then reevaluate and say if message not equals to quit, print message, and it'll keep doing that. So so now this is just explaining everything. If the user does not enter quit, then the while loop brings the prompt back up. So it's going to be continuous until you enter quit on that. So all right, so now we're going to use a flag. A flag can be defined as one variable that determines whether or not a program is active. So note we can write our programs so they run while the flag is set to true, and stop when several events sets the value to the flag to false. So this is a good way of combating errors within your program. So right here, this will be your flag right here, which will tell Python to start this while loop in an active state. So basically just true. And then we're just stating here, like, as long as that value in active is true, we're going to run these pieces of code. So if the message is equal to quit, we're going to activate that. We're going to change the value of activate to false, which will then end the program. And then if there is no message that equals quit, we're going to print the message that was stored in with those two prompts that I was showing you earlier, and that just explains it. Using break to exit the loop. Now this is just basically the same thing. The only thing is that the break statement lets you exit the program no matter the results of the conditional test, true or false. So instead of us changing, having to state if quit is if quit is entered in the message, then switch it to false, this break statement just automatically ends it no matter right when quit is there. So we can just automatically start this out in a true state, and then we can then we're going to store the prompt, which we have here. Please enter the name of your dream car, and enter the quit to end program. As you can see, obviously my dream car is stored inside of a city, and if city is equal to quit, then we're going to break, and this automatically ends the program. And then or else it says I would love to go to that city. So I guess I would love to go to whatever my input was. Well, y'all can fix that. That'll be a project for you guys. But it's the same concept though. It's just that the variable names are different than what we're asking here. You know. All right. So now look. You can use break statement in any loop, for or while loops, and that's what's unique about that. So you're definitely going to need to understand that, or you're definitely going to be using that a lot more to when you get more into programming. Now we're going to be getting on using the continue statement in a loop. The continue statement allows you to return to the beginning of the loop based on the results in the conditional test. Now, a loop that counts from 1 to 10, but only odd numbers. So what we have here is this one right here. And that should be 1A. So if y'all want to change that so you don't get confused, you can do it like that. But basically what we're stating here is that we're starting that count off at 0 as we store the value 0 into the current number. And then when within that while loop is just like counting to 5. The only thing is we're going to 10 this time. So this while loop is going to run as long as the value inside current number is less than 10. So here we're going to do add 1 to 0. And each time that it passes through this loop is going to add 1, basically like how it was. You remember 1 plus 1, and then 2 plus 1, etc. So it's going to do that all the way to 10. But the only thing is this time, if current number at modulo 2 equals to 0, we're going to continue. So what we're doing here is we're not going to print that number. We're going to skip over that number if it's even, and then we're going to fall into the else statement, and then once that number is skipped over, we're going to print the current number that is on. So you see how we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 all the way to 10, because that continue skipped over 2, 4, 6, 8, and that's how that works. Now one error you want to try to avoid is infinity loops, which is when a loop does not have a break statement in it. So like right now, if this was a regular terminal, all we would see is one, like 1111 or something. I'm about to explain it. But okay, so currently why to avoid it. Now here, this is just a simple while loop, and this is showing you what an infinity loop doesn't look like. And then we're going to show you what happens when you get rid of this, to where it's not adding numbers anymore, and it doesn't have a way to reach 5. So here in this infinity loop, this just simply states that we're going to start the count off at 2, and then keep this while loop running as long as x is less than 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, and then we're going to print out that value. Now, when this happens, matter of fact, I will show you guys what happens when this happens. Teeny baby. All right, so now we're going to create an infinite loop. Now, basically what is going to happen here, since how we can't add a +1 right here, like we have right here. See how we got that +1? So it will continue being like 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, and then it'll keep going all the way until it get to 5. Now it's just stuck in a constant loop of 2s because it has no way of adding, so there's no way of it growing, and so it's just stuck in a repetitive loop. And you see how it's just super fast, just keep going. Okay, all right, hey buddy, look, and it just keeps going, look, constantly. Now one way to get out of this is hit Control-C, and then it will ask you, do you want to terminate the batch job, and we just simply put Y, and it ends the program. Now another way, if that doesn't work, you can just simply exit out of the browser, the code editor you're using, and then you'll be able to do it like that. Now this is This is one thing that you gotta make sure. You gotta make sure that the while loop has some way of stopping itself. Like for instance, here we add 1 until it reaches 5, or we use a flag to switch the state from active to from true to false, or we just simply put a break statement and just do it like that. But you gotta have a way to end the loop, or you're gonna constantly be doing that. Now here we're going to we're using a while loop with lists and dictionaries. So a for loop is more effective for looping through lists. You should not modify lists inside of a for loop because Python has a hard time keeping up with the items. Using while loops with lists and dictionaries allows you to collect, store, and organize lots of input to examine report. So right here, we're going to be moving items from one list to another, and then we're going to be taking the list unconfirmed users and putting them in the list confirmed users. That's what we got going on here. So to explain this, we have a variable called unconfirmed users, which has a value of a list with elements Jerry, Reggie, Chris, and Paul. And then we have a list of confirmed users, which is an empty list to where we're going to convert these over. So now then we create a while loop, which basically tells Python as long as there are items inside of a confirmed user, then keep this while loop running. And then the indented pieces of code would tell Python that as long as now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable called current users, and it's going to take all the unconfirmed users and it's going to pop all the items out and it's going to store them into current users since I was in a while loop. Now if it was just current users unconfirmed users dot pop and it wasn't in a while loop, it would just take the last item and then store it in here. But now it's taking all the items and storing it in there. And then what we're going to do then is we're going to print to show you to simulate a process of a user getting verified. And then we're going to do plus current users dot title. So as you can see, the process is being simulated. So here is what this piece of code is showing you, verifying users Paul, Chris, and it goes on as a list. And then this piece of code is definitely is just telling Python to add all of the values inside of current user, and then we're going to store it inside of confirmed users. So this is how we're converting. This is how we're moving all these items into this one. Now, for now, we're just going to loop through all the items in confirmed users. So for confirmed user and confirmed users, and this just stores all the stuff that's in confirmed users in this temporary variable, which then we use in this print statement right here and add the dot title method to it. So that way, all the values or all the elements inside of the list is given a capital letter within their name. As you can see right here, it's all lowercase. And that would be just explaining that. Now we're going to, all right, so I don't know if y'all remember, but at the beginning of the video, I was explaining how the remove method removes the first occurrence when just used without being in a while loop. And this would delete all the currents of a single element. So say, for instance, in my list of pets, I have dog, cat, frog, rat, frog, dog, house, frog. So all you see, I have multiple frogs. 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 frogs in there. All right. So right here we're going to print the original list, which will be so we'll be able to show you the difference between the two. At 4a, the original list is here. Now pets dot remove frogs. So this is basically stating that as long as the item frog is inside of the list pets, this while loop will keep running. So in the indented pieces of code, we will be stating that pets dot remove frog. So this is removing all the elements frog. from the list, and then we're going to show you right here. So there's no more frog in here. All of them gone. Probably went to science. I don't know. I'm just kidding. And then so now we're going to talk about filling a dictionary with user input. And I will actually show you this. All right, so we're gonna get rid of this. Whoa, buddy. Oh, not play. All right, get rid of all these hashtags, baby. Wait a minute, what I got going on here? Oh, okay. All right, so. All right, guys. So this is just stating that this is a prompt right here. Yeah. So I'm hoping this video is helping you guys out. Any questions that you have, just simply message me and I'll get back to you with it. I definitely want to be active within this YouTube channel. So okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. All right, so here we are doing we're doing a while loop, right? We're filling the dictionary with user input. So okay, so response here, we created an empty dictionary called responses, and there's the empty dictionary with 2 curly brackets as the value. So now we're going to do polling is active, so that way later on we can switch it to false. But this is just basically stating that polling is active and is equal to true. Now we're going to do crap. That was supposed all that stuff's supposed to be indented. No, it was freaking weird. This is not regular code. All right, so all this is let me run this right quick, make sure it's right. All right, yeah, okay, so cool. All right, so basically what we're gonna do here is create an empty dictionary, and then we're gonna create a variable which holds the true. And then we're going to tell Python to run this while loop as long as polling active is equal to true. So within this while loop, we are creating prompts to prep the user for certain questions and stuff that we would like. So in the name variable, we're going to give them the input prompt and ask them what their name is. In the response variable, we're going to give them the input and ask them which mountain would they like to climb today. Now, in responses, now this is the empty dictionary right here. And what we're doing here is we're using the value that's going to be stored in name after they give us their name is going to be stored into the key name, and then our responses is going to be what's going to be here, which would be what they give us for their mountain, and it'd be stored in variable, and then it's going to be stored in the dictionary as a key value pair. So repeat is just basically giving you an option to quit. So would you like for another person to respond, yes or no? And this if statement just simply states if repeat is equal to no, then we're going to want to switch that polling active to false, which will end the program. And then once this program ends, we will once that while loop ends, we will then print out the poll results that that was received, and then we're going to create a for loop, which will then loop through the key value pairs in the responses in this dictionary responses, and we're going to use the dot item, which will return the list and store them into here. So with that being said, then we're just going to print the name that the person gave us, and then what mountain they wanted to climb. So I'll run this for you and show you how it works. So here we're going to enter the name, and then the mountain I would like to climb one day. I don't know. I'll make up one. Sherry. And it said, would you like to let another person use? So if I say yes, it's gonna ask them their name. And then we're gonna do say John. And he wants to climb Mountain Booty. Gotta climb that booty mountain. And then we don't want nobody else to respond. So we see that Kevin would like to climb Sherry. And then John would like to climb some booty, okay? I don't know what's going on there, but John going crazy. Now, but that's simply how that works. As far as putting user input or creating a dictionary full of user input. So yeah, this just basically breaks down all that and more in depth than how I'm presenting it. So the intro function, let's say the intro function. The intro to functions. Now, functions are named blocks of code that are designed to do one specific job. The indented pieces of code is what makes up the body of a function. So this line right here is what Python looks at as defining a function or creating a function. So within this definition, we have the name of the function right here, and then we have empty parentheses. Always remember to do the colon, just like with while loops, for loops. You gotta do this colon, or it's gonna get you that error. And this right here, when working with functions, it's a good idea to kind of get a short summary of what this function does, just in case either you or somebody else you pass your information on, and in case you or somebody else uses these functions, they'll know exactly what they're doing. So all this function is simply doing is printing hello. So whenever I make this whenever I want to use this function, I would simply just create a function call, which is just basically the name of the function, and always put the parentheses, because in some functions you would need to provide additional information. So you always got to have that parentheses there. So so that's explaining the function. Now, passing info into a function, when a we got parameters and arguments. And a parameter is a piece of information the function needs to do its job. Arguments is a piece of information passed through the function from the function call. So basically what that is stating is that the definition, the function by name, and we're saying here, this is defining a function. Oh crap, this is defining a function right here. So how we're defining this function is that giving it the name of the function is by name, and then we give it one parameter, username. So as you can see here, is a piece of information that the function needs to do its job. So here we're going to, within this function, we're going to describe exactly what this function is doing. So we're using a parameter in a function. So, so here we're going to create a print statement, hello plus username dot title plus exclamation point. This is connotation, remember? And this is just us using that parameter in this way, this format. So now when we do the function call, which is just basically the function name and then the parentheses of, and then the information we need to make this function operate. So the argument is a piece of information passed through the function from the function call. This is your function call right here. Oh, no, what are you doing, bro? Ah. Oh yeah? Think you're smarter than me, huh? Oh my god. Look at this, bro. Alright. So basically, that's the only thing I don't like about this is that it literally restarts you all the way at the beginning. So you gotta scroll all the way down. On our word. And then I gotta categorize how I got it. Right. Alright, so explaining an argument and a parameter. So this whenever you provide a function with a parameter, in in order for this function to work, you have to provide an argument whenever you're calling this function. So say for instance, it's just like a phone call. So all right, so you know your friend's name is by name and has a number called username, right? So whenever we want to call your friend, we have to give it the number, which is the argument, and that helps us be able to make a phone call, right? So here in this print statement, what is going on with this argument is that is going to be stored in this parameter, and then it's going to be used in this print statement when to make the function operate. And what the so which as you can see at one, what the nah, bro, calm down, bro, too far. All right, what you can see is one is creating a function called greet users. Hello. Then that's the first one. So this is passing info to a function, and you can see how hello M Curry, even though it says Kevin right here. So I'm guessing this is using an old one. But either way, same concept. Is basically just taking the argument from. It's just basically taking an argument and formatting it into the print statement. And this explains everything down here. So then we're going to talk about passing arguments. There are two kinds of arguments you can pass through a function call, and one is called positional arguments. Needs to be in the same order as the parameters in the function, and the keyword arguments consist of a variable and value, or list in dictionaries as values. So basically, what is going on here at two right here, you can see that I'm creating a dog. So this is supposed to be right here. I don't know what's going on, guys. They got my thing all messed up. All right, so I'm gonna move this thing pretty fast, huh? Oh, I'm not going. If I'm going too fast, let me know. All right, so now that we're going to be talking about positional arguments. So what we do is we define a new function called describe pet, and we give it two parameters: animal type and a pet name, which is common for animal. So then we give it a doc string, which is going to explain what the function is doing, and it's just displaying information about a pet. And then we're going to create a print statement within that method, and it's going to give use the parameters in this print statement. So it says I have whatever your animal type is, and then the second print statement is going to say my animal type, say for instance is dog, or and then it's going to give you the name of your pet right here when it prints it out. So whenever we're going to call this function in a positional argument, the arguments, however many parameters you have, the arguments have to match that order. So describe pet's dog is going to be the type of the animal that it is, and then Q is going to be the name of the pet. So whenever we call this function and pass this information and store it into these parameters, then the way we distributed the parameters is going to link all the information to that to where it makes sense. So right here you can see at 2 we have I have a dog, and that's the animal type, and that's the argument dog. And then we're going to say my dog's name is Q. So that would be the animal type, and that would be the argument Q that was in the function call. So that's how positional arguments work. Now, keyword arguments is doesn't necessarily matter about order, and I showed you down here. I'll show you down here. All right, so you directly associate the name and value within the argument, so you don't have to worry about which order to put them in. So here we're going to use the same function, describe pets, and the only thing that's going to be different is how we call this function. So describing pets is the name of the function that we're trying to call, and then we're going to give within the parentheses the exact place of where we want each of these values to go. So for instance, my pet name would be Henry, even though the first parameter is animal type, right? But since how we got keyword, we telling Python exactly where we want that value to go. So pet name equals Henry, and then we have animal type, which will be a zombie. So if you got a pet zombie, it takes that as well, right? So here you go. We give it the animal type zombie. So when we go look at this, we say I have a zombie, and my zombie's name is Henry. So that's pretty cool, right? Then like I said, this is just explaining everything in a more detailed manner. Now we're going to talk about default values. Default values is simple. It's just a value is an argument already assigned to one or both parameters. When you call the function, you either have the option to use the default value as the argument or enter in your own value as the argument. If you use only one default value, then the value must be last when defining the function. And then I'll show you that, which tells Python that it only needs an argument for parameter first. So what that is basically explaining with all this, and I'm gonna make sure you're okay, yeah. All right, so basically all we did is define a function called pre-screened. And within that pre-screened, we gave first and last two variables. So this is going to simulate a human or something like that, however you want to look at it. So, when a person is dead, their name is John Doe, right? If there is no name. So that's the default, right? So here we're going to use doc string to explain exactly what this is. And, so within this print statement, we are going to simply take the first argument, and we're just going to apply the first parameter, and we're just going to organize it how we want to use these parameters. So hello first, how are you? How may I help you, Mr. Last, and then your last name. So here I called it with the default value. So it says hello John, right? And it says how are you? How may I help you, Mr. Doe? That'd be weird. But yeah, this is John Doe, and we're asking him how we can help him. But now I supply arguments, my own arguments that I want to make out of this. So I recall the pre-screen, and I give them the argument for what I want as the first name, and then the argument of what I want as the last name. And when we look at 3A, we can now see that that it says, hello Mark, how are you? How may I help you, Mr. Holy? Mark Holy, baby. Yeah, y'all know about Mark Holy. But yeah, basically how default values work. So if you can either use what's there, or you can give your own arguments in it. Now we're going to talk about intro to returning value. And right there. So Here, we're going to talk about the return statement. The return statement takes the value from inside a function and sends it back to the line that called the function. So returning a simple value. All right, so here we can see at 1 right here. All right, so here we're going to define a variable called formatted name, and we're going to give it two parameters, first name and last name. And then we're going to give it a doc string that says formatting name, right? So full name, then we're going to connotate these two parameters into just one organized format. So this is how this would be displayed. And then we're going to use the first name, and then we're going to create a space and then use the last name. And then we're going to return this format right here back to the to this call line right here. So whenever we're using the return statement, we have to provide a variable that stores that return object. So with that being said, when we create a variable employees, we're going to give formatted name John, the first name, and then Peterson, the last name. So what these arguments is then done once we make this function call and then we print it. It's going to take John and put it in first name, Peterson into last name, and then what it's going to do is going to take the first name value and store it into full name, and then the last name value and store it into last name. And then we're going to convert that into a whole full name, which would be formatted like this. So then the output will turn out to be John Peterson. And you see how it's neatly formatted, dot title method, capital J, capital P. All right, and now we're going to be talking about making an argument optional. So let me see. Let me get this. All right. So basically, this is just going back to default values, and it's just a different way of looking at it. So here we're going to define a function called formatted names, and all we're doing is just adding to it first name, last name, and then we got middle name right here. So what this is basically doing is like how I did with John Doe. Instead of giving it an actual value to output, if we decide not to use it, we're just going to create an empty string, which tells you if you want to add it, you can. And then if there is a middle name argument, then it would be formatted like this, first, middle, and last. And if there's not a middle name argument, then it'll just be the regular format of first and last name. And then we're going to return whichever conditional is met, the full name format, and then we're going to return it back to the call line so you can print it out that way. And the first one, we're going to do no middle name, and we're going to give the arguments John and Peterson back again, and then we're going to show you, as you can see, no middle name is the same value as the first one, and then we're going to print one with the middle name, and as you can tell from the first one, it doesn't give any quotations or nothing. It's just simple, right? And then with the middle name, we're going to call the same function and give it three arguments: John, Peterson, and Allen. Now, the way this order is set up is that you gotta position the ones that don't have a default value there, or is not optional, and you gotta call them first, because anytime you have a parameter with a default value, it's got to be last unless they're all default values. So Python matches up John with first name, Peterson with last name, and then Allen with the middle name. And since how it is a middle name, we're going to format it like this, which is shown here: John Allen Peterson. So that's an easy way of, well, another way of looking at default values also. All right, and now we're going to be returning a dictionary. Now, a function can return any type of data you need it to. Now, in this one right here, we're going to build a person. And how we're going to when defining this method, we're simply just going to we're gonna give it two parameters. Sorry guys, get kind of tired. But yeah, we're gonna give it two parameters, minds and body type. And then within that function, we are going to give it a doc string, which is simply telling us what this function is doing. We're returning a dictionary. So what we're going to do now is we're going to format our parameters into a dictionary. So what we do is we're going to create a variable to store this information into. And then what we're going to do is create two curly brackets, which is the dictionary. And then we're going to have our first key is going to be mind. And then our value is going to be the parameter minds. And then body type is going to be our key. And then the parameter body types is going to be our value. And then we're going to return this format back to whenever we get our arguments. So whenever we're doing our function call and we create a variable, which will then store the function right here, the function call in. So build person, and we're going to send it the arguments creative for minds, and then we're going to do fit for body types. So whenever this outcome is printed out, the mind would have the value of creative, and body type would have the value of fit. As you can see, what is this? 3. As you can see for 3, returning a dictionary using a function. Mind, creative, body type, fit. So now we're going to add another key value pair to the dictionary person. So we're going to create an age, and we're going to make that age is going to have a default value of an empty string, what makes it optional. So again, we have a doc string that returns a dictionary, and then the person is going to be our variable. And then we're just going to use the same dictionary, and but this time we're going to have an if statement. So what we're telling Python is, if there is an age provided in the arguments, then we're going to add a new key value pair to the dictionary, and the new key is going to be called age, and the value is going to be the age parameter. And then we're going to return that back to the call line, which would be down here. So when we call this function, it will print out the format that we need. So here at the first one, we are going to build the same one that we've seen previously without the age. So creative and fit. So mind, creative, body type, fit. And now we're going to create one with an age. So here we see that avatar equals build person, creative, fit, and their age is going to be 18. So what that would do is, as you can see on the output, is mind equals creative, body type equals fit, and age equals 18. Or sorry, key is mind, value is creative, body type, key body type, value is fit, key age, value is 18. And that's how you pretty much use that. Using a function with a while loop is pretty simple. So here, basically what we're going to do is, I'm going to have to take some of this code and put it in Genie, but I'm going to define this one. So this is just basically the formatted name function. And then let me just copy all this right quick. Wrong one. So, all right. So I just pasted it. Give it all this crap. Get rid of you and you and you. All you guys get out of here. Now this is not part of the while loop. Oh girl. Alright, so since this is not part of the while loop, we're just gonna put that out right there. All right, so like I said before, this is just simply the formatted name with the two parameters: first name, last name. Doc string formatted name, and then we take the two parameters and then we store them into a variable full name formatted like this, and then we're going to return that format back to the call line with a dot title method. So basically what we're doing here is we're creating a while loop to run as long as all these conditions are met, or it's still true and it doesn't switch to false. So first we're going to print, please tell me your name, and then first name, well, F name is going to equal input first name. So if F name equals to quit, we're going to break this while loop. So and then for last name, we're going to equal input last name. So these are prompts that we're prompting them to enter their first and last name. And then the if statement underneath L name is going to say if L name equals to quit, then we're going to end this program. So here with the call statement, we just simply put in we call the formatted name function, and then we're going to give it the input. That way we can use the values stored in these F name and L name as a way of printing out our hello statement with formatted, as you can see. So I'm going to show you how this is done. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah, unexpected. See, errors everywhere. What does it say? First name? All right, so first name Kevin, last name Henry. Oh, yeah? John? Joe? John. Now we're going to do QUT. Oh. Hello, quit, John. It works, trust me. All right, so that's how that works. And that's pretty much it for that. Like I said, it'll be more, I'll be able to explain it more in the details down here of how everything works. Now, passing a list through a function, simply all you're doing is here we're going to, what number is this? All right, so here we're going to define a function called greeting and give it the parameter names. Then we're going to create a doc string for each user's for name in names, which basically tells Python for every name that's stored inside the names of variable. Then we're going to create a variable message which says hello, and then we're going to format it like this, which print name. So guest is equals Josh, Eric, Stephen, Paul. So we're creating a list of what we're going to put through the greeting function. And remember, names is the parameter, so these are the arguments that we're giving. Greeting, guest. And then it converts every greeting into this hello plus name dot title plus exclamation. So now we can see here at 1, passing list through a function call. So hello Josh, hello Eric, hello Steve, Paul. And this is how you can do that by putting the list through a function. So you want to create the list first, and then you want to pass the list through the function call. And when you pass the list through the function call, everything in that list is stored in this parameter, and every item in that parameter is then looped through and stored into name, and then we're going to take the message that the MSG, and we're going to store all the names into here, and we're going to print out this statement for every item. Now that's pretty much simple about the about that. More detail be right here if you want to get more into it. Modifying a list in a function call creating two functions to simulate a company that creates phone cases. So here we're going to create a function. Hold on. Right here. All right. So here we're going to create two lists: unprinted designs and a list of designs. So robot, dragon, wolf, and then we're going to create an empty list of finished cases. So first we're going to define a function that is print cases, which has the parameter undesigned, which is that list, and then it has the empty list finished cases. So this is just going to simulate printing each design until none left, then move each element from one list to the other. So while unprinted designs, so basically stating this while loop is going to run in this method until all these elements in this list is out of here. So what we're going to do then is we're going to create a variable called current design, which is basically all the items that's in unprinted designs stored into current because we popped all the items out. And then we're going to create a print statement telling you which designs are printing. So then we give you all the values that's inside of the current design, and we're going to show you what items is in there with the dot title method. And then when we get done showing you that, we are going to store all the items in current design into finished cases. So finished cases dot append current design, and that adds all the designs into that's in unprinted cases to finished cases. So that's how we would convert that from one list to another in function code. Now, this function is defining completed lists, finished cases. So this is only working with this used to be empty list. So what we're doing here is we're showing all the elements in finished cases. Print the following orders are done. And then for finished case, in finished cases, so basically here in this for loop, we're just simply grabbing all the items from finished cases, storing them into a temporary variable finished case, and then print in this format all the items. So as you can see, the following orders are done: wolf, dragon, robot. And then the previous function, modifying a list in a function call, which is printing design. See, remember when I was talking about this? How it's popping each item into current design? And you see how right here where it added all of the current designs to the empty list, and now we're able to use it in this function down here, which is wolf, dragon, and robot. So that's how you do that. And then whenever you want to print it out, what this is we're doing a function call, and then we're passing the function called the list of what we want to work with. And then we're going to do another function call for the last method, for the last function, and it's going to say completed list. So this is the finished items that are in that are of the list after converting. So you always want to make sure you call this one first and then this one, or it wouldn't result in anything. You'll not get what you want. But this is everything broken down from that. And like I said, I would advise you to take notes on all this stuff and use it. Even though you always have it, writing it down it works a different part of your brain. So it's like you did visual. You know, if you're reading this to yourself, you get the vocal learning, and then if you're writing it down, it's like I think they call it machine learning. I don't know the details of it, but I know it's a process that helps. So here we're going to be talking about intro to passing an arbitrary number of arguments. I give you the definition of what actually arbitrary means, just because when I first seen this, I didn't know what it means. So I'm pretty sure watching this video, you probably don't know what it means. If you do, good. If you don't, here's your help. Determined by chance, whim, or impulse, and not by necessity, reason, or principle. So basically what this is saying is that we wouldn't know exactly, or no, basically it's saying that we can accept as many as we want when referring to this. So like we can have as many arguments as we want. is what arbitrary, because you don't know. You might have 1, you might have 3, you might have 5. That's arbitrary because you just don't know. So what I want you to know is that the asterisk before a parameter's name when defining a function tells Python to make an empty tulip called the parameter's name and to pack whatever arguments it receives from the function call into the parameter. So this is basically just stating that with this asterisk within this make pizza function when defining it, this asterisk right here just tells Python to make a tulip called toppings, well, topping, and then to be able to accept as many arguments as it can and store it into that tulip. And then here we're going to be, once we call this function, we're going to be printing out every item that is stored in there, or every argument that was passed through the function call. So, So here, as you can see, is 1 is passing a number of arguments. Make pizza, and then we're gonna give it some elements. Some arguments: turkey, mushroom, extra cheese, peppers. So all that is stored inside the make pizza parameter topic, and which will be then printed. Which, as you can see here, is it's in parentheses because this asterisk is telling Python to create a tulip. Now I printed it. I called the function twice just to show you the difference between how many arguments it can take. And as you can see, it has 4 right here and it only has 1 right here. But you can do that pretty much with anything. Now, this is changing the print statement to a for loop. So instead of us just saying print, we can also make a for loop out of it. Maybe better compare it if I can. You see how it just says print toppings? And this is for loop. So basically all we're doing is just using a for loop to create the same outcome. Pretty sure you understand this. For made pieces, temporary variable. So all the values in made piece, stored into made pizzas and then printed out in this format. So as you can see, that is right here. All right, so that explains that. Using arbitrary keyword arguments. Basically, all we're doing here is we're mixing keyword and positional arguments. So here we have the function build profile always takes the first and last name, but it accepts an arbitrary number of keyword arguments as well. So this double asterisk right here is creating a dictionary that can take unlimited amount of arguments. And within this function definition, build account, we get the first name, last name, and a limited amount of user info, which would be stored inside of a dictionary. And obviously the doc string is going to tell you that. Building in a dictionary containing everything about the user account. So here we're going to start off with a empty dictionary called profile. Now we're going to set a few key value pairs, and the first one will be first name, and then we're going to give it a value of the first parameter, and then profile last name is going to be given the last name parameter. Now for every key value pair in the user underscore info dot items. So this is basically telling you like whichever arguments is stored into the user's info, we're going to return it, and then we're going to store it as profile key, and it's going to equal the value of the for loop. So we're basically just separating all these and giving key values. And then we're going to return this format back to the call line. So whenever we call this function, it will format it in a way that we want. Now, user profile equals build account. We're calling it the function. Sorry, keep wanting to say method. I'll explain why later, but this is the first argument, so it will go into the Albert. So it will store Albert. Then the last method, it will store Einstein. The last parameter, it will store Einstein. Now, location and field is keyword arguments. So what this is doing is it's going to store these keyword arguments into the user info, because this is last, and then in this you can take as many arguments as you want. So as you can see, this would be the key, this would be the value, this would be the key, this would be the value. And now when we print this out, first name is going to be Albert, because that's how we stored it, right? Last name is going to be Einstein, because that's how we stored it here. Then location right here, which is your key, is going to be Princeton, which is your value. And then we're going to store field. Then we're going to get field, which is your key, and then we're going to do physics, which is the value of this keyword argument. And all right, so guys, this is pretty much it for this half of the tutorial. I'm gonna make this into a 2 separate video, but the next one we're going to be working on will be where's my GitHub? It's going to be the review number 2, and then you're going to also need to download this right here. We're also going to need to download review 2 and stored functions. So this is pretty much it for right now. Any questions, anything that can help me later in more videos will tremendously help. If you could just like and subscribe, stay updated with my Instagram and stuff like that. I'll keep posting. I haven't recently, because I'm just starting this whole thing, and this is how I started out. All the links in the description is stuff that I recommend you guys go check out. I have other YouTube channels to be able to explain VS Code, Genie, and any other software that you have. Just listed into the comments. And this is if y'all was interested in what I was using to screen record, is always OBS. Look that up on YouTube. Tell me what you think about it. But yeah, this is pretty much it for this first tutorial. I want you guys to keep following me. I'm gonna have new stuff all the time, and I'm here to help you guys. We're gonna go through some stuff, and I'm gonna teach y'all some stuff, and this is just basically me learning. All right, y'all have a good one.